Miss Demon Maid ch 21-40. Requested by Empatitis of More Clan and Joy. Chapter 21, Tea Party. Since morning today, we've been making preparations to go to a tea party. Who would have a tea party with such a loner queen as Lady Sharon? Is probably what some of you people out there might be foolishly thinking, but my lady has indeed received an invitation. Everyone still remember, right? HMM. Of course I still do. Right up until I don't. Letty, is this good enough? Of course. You look wonderful in them, my lady. The invitation came from her schoolmate, a young lady of a Viscount family. This would be my lady's first time going to a tea party. My lady's ensemble today is a simple dress, albeit one with plenty of room in the chest area in order to bring out all of my lady's charm. I had wanted to get her in all sorts of cute clothes, but my lady is unfortunately overly gifted in a particular department. It's difficult to find ready-made clothes that fit her. To give you an idea of my lady's size, it is large enough that the employee of the clothing store we went to had clicked her tongue when she looked at my lady. Letty, you just had another unflattering thought, didn't you? I was just thinking about the innate inequality between people. My lady. My, Letty, that sounds like a grand topic. The grandest in the world, I would say. Welcome, Lady Sharon. I am most grateful that you have accepted my invitation. The Viscount's young lady turns to me. It is good to have you here as well, Miss Verity. Oh, of course, you're welcome. Come back anytime. My lady outdoes herself once again with her stranger anxiety. She's panicking so much her response doesn't even make sense. But that's what makes her beautiful. Come, let's go. Yes. I had to give the Viscount's young lady a nudge to jolt her out of her temporary blue screen. After her reboot, she gets back to guiding us to our destination. The young lady was born to the Yellow Viscount, and her name is Clarice. She is in the same study group as me in class. We've received her invitation since before my lady's homecoming trip, but I still haven't been able to discern her intentions. Hey there, Miss Sharon, Miss Verity. Hello, Lady Sharon. Kamishiro. The whole terrace has been reserved. There, we find two people already seated and enjoying their tea. Salutations, Instructor Masa, Lady Chiri. My lady says. The same two we met before. Instructor Masa looks to be in a good mood, but Miss Chiri doesn't seem to be in very good cheer. I can see her frowning a little. My lady takes her seat. I move to my usual spot behind her. Miss Verity, please feel free to sit down, Lady Clarice says, a hint of dismay on her face as she glances at the empty seat. My apologies. I am Lady Sharon's maid, and as such, I should not be seated at the same table, I say, bowing my head. Strangely enough, my lady seems rather sad as she turns her eyes up at me. Letty, please. It's a request from me, too. But then I won't ask you to. I'm ordering you take the same seat as me, my lady. Of course, I know that despite saying it's an order, it's really just her looking out for her humble servant. Then, allow me, as she has asked me to take the same seat, I climb on Lady Sharon to sit on her lap, facing her. You know that's not what I meant. Thwack. It's been quite a while since she took out the slipper again. Speaking of which, Miss Sharon, I heard you've picked up G. Yes, sir, but I've only just started. Indeed. With age comes wisdom. While everyone else is still gaping at me as I sit down on the seat next to my lady as though nothing had happened, only Instructor Marcel makes conversation, looking as calm as ever. As I've mentioned in class before, G is quite good for training your magic control. Keep at it, Miss Sharon. Why yes, sir. Teacher, I've also learned Purify. Chiri suddenly cut in, leaning forward and sounding like a cute honor student who's asking her teacher for some personal tutoring, and I think I'm getting the hang of barrier now. But I'm nervous, doing this alone. If you wouldn't mind, teacher, would you? Has something happened? This time, it is Lady Clarice who interrupts Chiri with a smile on her face. Chiri's lips twitch. The church has requested Miss Chiri's expertise in G. Instructor Maso answers, smiling kindly and seemingly oblivious to the current atmosphere. Is that why she has learned barrier? Has something happened at the church? Lady Clarice says, her eyes faintly narrowing. Chiri lightly brushes Instructor Maso on the arm and chuckles. That's a secret, right, teacher? I can practically feel the sparks flying. Meanwhile, my lady cowers in fear. unable to face the carnage with her lacking skills in womanly combat. Well, it doesn't really have anything to do with me anyway. In place of the Viscount House's maid who's frozen in place, I begin to prepare for my lady a cup of very sweet caramel milk tea. Oh yes, which reminds me, I saw Elias talking to Miss Flaherty here at the church. I was honestly surprised, you know. He rarely shows interest in women. Instructor Marceau changes the subject. I have no idea if this is him reading the mood, or not reading the mood. Chiri's shoulders move in an almost unnoticeable shake. That day, the silver armor-wearing knight had continued to be quite insistent in trying to talk to me. A gift of roses then arrived for me a few days later. I immediately made them into rose jam. He's not interested in women? Does that mean he's interested in men, then? I ask Instructor Marceau. No, that's not what I meant. Then you're friends with him, teacher? Or are you friends with him? Please stop. Strangely enough, Instructor Marceau's face rapidly pales. On the other hand, Lady Clarice blushes, looking as though she's discovered something that she likes very much. It's not that. He's, my, what an intriguing conversation. I really have to wonder if the people of this world are culturally inclined to interrupt others. Despite the terrace being reserved for the tea party, the doors are now open, and a very good-looking lady who looks to be in her early 20s strides toward us. Her hair is a scarlet red. Lady Camilla. Instructor Reese. Lady Clarice and Miss Chiri's voices overlap. Oh, yes, of course I remember her. Like Instructor Marceau, she is also a teacher at the Magic Academy. Camilla de Reese, the young lady of a duke's family. Clarice. Why have you called Marceau but not me? My apologies. Clarice hurriedly bows, intimidated by the lady instructor's aggression. Instructor Reese, don't be so harsh. As Instructor Marceau tries to mediate, Lady Camilla coquettishly leans on him, fingertips caressing his leg. Come on, Marceau, aren't we co-workers? I told you, just call me Camilla. She purrs. Indeed, she makes Miss Chiri look like a kid in comparison. While Lady Camilla is the third daughter of a duke as well as an instructor of the academy, it doesn't change the fact that Instructor Marceau is still her senior. A rather saucy woman she is, to be acting so familiar with him. You over there, are you acquainted with Elias? Lady Camilla throws out her chest and asks me, condescension in her voice. How disappointing. My lady is far more impressively endowed. Instructor Camilla, your ringlets are truly luxurious. My, is that your attempt at deflection? Despite saying that, she still seems quite pleased. Her lips faintly twitches in a smile, while her fingers brush through her scarlet curls. Right. My hands meet each other in a gesture of realization, and I turn to my lady. Letty. My lady, today's snack will be chocolate cornets. What were you looking at to get that idea? The words had offended Camilla's sensibilities and signaled the end of the tea party. Chiri waited until no one was looking at her and quietly sighed. Today's tea party had been extremely stressful. Not only was the Viscount young lady, the main heroine, there, but also two of the villainesses. There were three villainesses in this game. Sharon was a character that showed up in all routes to annoy and harass you, but never really doing more. On the other hand, Camilla only appeared if you proceeded with the adult's routes, but she made for a truly terrifying villain. Chiri had seen her in the game many times. Nevertheless, when it came time to face her in the flesh and not through a two-dimensional screen, Chiri found her to be an even more intense woman than she had expected. Thinking that today was a game event, Chiri had pestered Marceau to take her along to the tea party, but then she found out the main heroine had also invited Sharon. She had no idea what the Viscount young lady had been thinking. At first, she thought she would have to make enemies out of all of them at the same time. A headache-inducing prospect if there ever was one. But then her mind changed tack. Maybe the real problem was Kamishiro. After all, the presence Camilla displayed had been crushing, yet the girl still had the nerve to ignore the woman without even blinking an eye. If it had been Chiri, she was sure she wouldn't have been able to do it. I guess I really have to deal with her first. Instructor Reese. May I have a bit of your time? I would like to consult you on a matter. Hey, Letty, where is this? Today, my lady and I are on a shopping trip downtown. I take a look at the memo she shows me, and my eyebrows slightly furrow. This store is located in a back alley. I shall go and make the purchase. My lady. You can't. Instructor Camilla has asked me to do this, and so I will. At school, there may be times when an instructor requests their students to run an errand for them, Rather than being a personal chore that the teacher needs doing, it's more meant to serve as a sort of practical lesson for the noble boys and girls who haven't had much contact with the common people. All the same, as my lady is a marquis' daughter, there hasn't been many teachers who have sent her for errands. Lady Camilla was the one to have asked her this time, however, so my lady couldn't refuse. My apologies. I have overstepped my bounds. Don't mind it, Letty. Besides, I still want you to stay with me. My lady is already somewhat blushing by the end, her voice shrunken into an embarrassed whisper. How cute. Hey the young ladies, brave of you to come here without bodyguard. A man appears before us right after we enter the back alley and starts running his mouth, so I let him have a taste of my spiked club. Nice shot. Letty? My lady sounds shocked. Quite a ruffian he was, to have scared my lady so. That's not what I'm talking about. What are you doing so suddenly? What do you mean, my lady? Anyone who would say something so cliché in this sort of place would inevitably meet the same fate. Oh yes, do you mean we should have tied him up and interrogate him? My apologies, I have been hasty. No, that's not what I meant either. I have held back as much as I could on him, but the man is still twitching on the ground with hands between his legs. He does not seem to be available for questioning, but there is no need to worry. He hasn't been alone. The few men behind him are already taking out bladed weapons. See? Though I can see some fear mixing in with the anger they're showing on the faces. Damn this bitch, she thinks she's hot shit. Don't bother kidnapping them, just fuck 'em up. So, kidnapping, is it? Simply to take a ransom? Or perhaps they're working for someone? I ready my orc killer X in an actual stance. Seeing me, my lady tugs on my sleeves. You can take them down, but, don't do that nice shot thing again, okay? How kind of my lady. I understand. Her face is flipping between a pale pallor and a bright blush, after all. Besides, if I do the upswing with my full strength, I don't think they'd be in any condition to talk. Understood. I approach the group. One of the men runs at me with his weapon. I trip him with my spiked club and once he lies on the ground, I make a putt with Orc Killer X. Splat. Birdie. Flip. My gentle strike hasn't been enough to make him faint. It only turns his face ashen pale and sodden with cold sweat while his body shivers. Come on, be grateful for my lady's kindness. One more hit. No, that's not it. Don't worry, my lady. There are still plenty of balls left to hit. Let's see what they know about their backer. I/N. It was very kind of the maid and her mistress to have allowed them to stay conscious. Chapter 22, Meal. Instructor Camilla, here are your requested purchase. Right. Thanks, Sharon. A beautiful silver-haired girl entered the room. She placed on the table the items she had purchased from a dubious pharmacy in a back alley. The glamorous red-haired woman, Camilla, narrowed her eyes for a moment, before showing a honeyed smile as her hands gathered up the items. You took quite some time for such a simple errand, didn't you? Camilla coolly said. The girl frantically bowed, her long eyelashes trembling. My utmost apologies. The two noble ladies, one of a dukedom and one of a marquis house, were more than just passingly familiar with each other. They had been acquaintances from a young age. Camilla possessed great pride and dignity as a noble lady, and the girl had always seen her as an example to follow. Well, I've always known you were a dim-witted one. Just don't embarrass me. Why yes. Even when faced with such derision, the all-too-naive girl still believed Camilla was saying it for her sake. Camilla's lips curled upward contemptuously. Speaking of which, what has happened to that maid? Might Instructor Camilla be speaking of Letty? I mean, Fritty. Who else? Really, you're such a dullard, Sharon. Camilla spoke, displeasure audible in her castigation even as she opened wide her feather fan to hide a grin of delight. The place is somewhat out of the way, and there might just be some unsavory characters showing up from time to time. Don't tell me you went there without any guards to accompany you? No, the so-called errand had been meant as a practical lesson, so going out with a protective bubble of guards would have rendered it meaningless. The unwritten rules were that the student was allowed only a single servant to accompany them. Surely you haven't gone out with just a single maid? She might have been an otherworlder with a useful skill, but don't forget who you are. You're of a marquis house, Sharon, not low nobility. Camilla drew closer to the girl, her voice gaining a hint of anticipation, or perhaps, has she gotten hurt? Sharon's eyes darted to and fro in apparent discomfort. Letty is. And the silver-haired girl turns her eyes at me. I am here. I whisper into Camilla's ear. She practically jumps from her seat with an ear-splitting shriek. Greetings, everyone. It is me, Furity, the lovely maid who is standing right behind you. Why you? Camilla says, still catching her breath. How dare you show up so suddenly, and from behind too. At that, learn some manners. It hadn't been sudden, Instructor Camilla. I had entered after Lady Sharon, and I was the one to have arranged the requested items on the table. Wah! As Camilla searches her memory, she soon realizes that the void in her perception until now had been me. She gapes. But, well, it's to be expected. After all, not only did I erase my presence, I also made use of transparent threads to change a few things in the visual information that she received. In that alleyway, my lady, and I as well, I suppose, had been attacked. I was forced to defend ourselves, and it had been thanks to my lady's kindness that they were captured before they could permanently lose their ability to commit any further criminal activities in the future. It was legitimate self-defense. Totally. I then took the few occasions when my lady's attention was elsewhere to initiate some intensive dialogue with the captives. It turned out that they had been given the info by a servant of a low noble, and that the servant had already been discharged from their position. The culprits certainly took care of their loose ends, I must say. Of course, that didn't mean I couldn't guess how things might have happened. Why are you unhurt? I do not understand, Instructor Camilla. There hadn't been any obstacle. Or perhaps you mean to say that you were aware there would be danger at our destination. Instructor W. What are you implying? Of course there would be. That's the sort of place where ruffians and rascals would gather. That's common sense. And an instructor of the academy would still make it a location for an errand. Despite that, Sharon is a high noble. Of course she would have bodyguards to protect her. I see. Our business is concluded then, Instructor. As we shall have to report the matter to the Academy and His Majesty as well, please allow us to take our leave. Impudent servant, know your place. Their time is much too valuable to be bothered by such trivialities. Don't think being a partner candidate will protect you when I throw you into prison. Oh, yes, before I forget. There is a delivery from the pharmacist to Instructor Camilla. I take out a bottle containing a noxiously pink liquid. Camilla's eyes grow into the size of saucers. After the talk that the esteemed pharmacist had deigned to grant me, it came to my knowledge that there was a certain noble lady who frequently visited the shop to obtain a rather powerful kind of medication. As it is made from moss gathered from the lowest levels of a dungeon, it would take several months to have enough to fill a single one of this bottle. It's a very interesting product indeed. Whoever was purchasing this surely has good taste. Yet I am but a lowly maid, and I am aware that such a treasure deserves a more worthy owner. I was thinking to bring it to the academy, but I wonder. Lady Camilla, you are an instructor. Should I entrust it into your care? I'll take it. The item has already been paid for. I only request my handling fee. I give her a bill that lists said fee and a few other expenses. Lady Camilla's face rapidly changes color. This. Would you prefer me to take this directly to the Riksdukedom instead? I'll pay. I am grateful. The slip of paper resembles less an invoice and more a notice of debt. Really? But surely Lady Camilla would overlook the difference if she knows what's good for her. My lady is looking rather jittery as well. Oh, she hasn't needed to worry. Instructor Camilla, rest assured, I haven't come here just to burden you with more responsibilities. Gently, delicately, I present to her a perfume bottle that is quite a bit smaller than the previous bottle of medicine. What is this? I assume Instructor Camilla would understand if I say that it's twice as powerful. Yes. Lady Camilla's eyes flash for a single moment. Her face is crimson red, a drastic change from what she looked like only minutes ago, and she snatches the perfume bottle into her possession as though afraid it would run away. Thus concludes my lady's errand. All's well that ends well. And forgive me for not explaining more about the aforementioned medicine, as I am sure there are those under 18 among the readers. Several days later. It is the date of the planned meal with His Highness Jill that my lady had been invited to weeks ago. Hey, Sharon, you're looking even more radiant today. Thank you for the compliment, Your Highness. Of course she is. Today, my lady has her hair in a quick updo, while her outfit is a scarlet dress that clings to her curves and shows off her shoulders. As her dress doesn't leave much to the imagination, she's being rather bashful, yet it is exactly that embarrassment that makes her look perfect. She did smack me with a slipper when I said as much, but it doesn't mean I was wrong. His Highness' gaze is fixed on her figure, after all. Especially one place in particular. My lady had been one of his fiancé candidates ever since they were young, but it is not until today that they actually have their first meal alone together. Really, I just showed off a fraction of her true beauty and Prince Jewel is already acting like this. What a dreadfully hopeless man. As the occasion is only an informal get-together between fellow students, other than my lady and Prince Jewel, there is only me in the position of my lady's maid, 2 senior maids serving His Highness, and finally his bodyguard, the Imperial Knight leader named Andy. When Andy saw my beautiful lady wearing a dress, his eyes squinted for a moment as though he was looking at something much too dazzling. Then his gaze moved to a certain part of my lady's and he looked away in apparent shame, his cheeks blushing. What a closet pervert he is. Yet I could not blame him for it. It is the first time my lady wears such a mature dress that shows off her body so. After all, Andy must have been feeling quite guilty for being entranced by Lady Sharon's sensuality when he had only ever seen her as a little sister. But the fruit is so much more enticing when it's forbidden, isn't it? I totally get it, Andy, you horn dog. Hey. Oh yes. Miss Verity, would you care to join us? I understand you've become Sharon's maid, but you are her partner as well. Prince Joel suddenly says. He turns to Sharon. I notice you seem somewhat nervous. Would you be more at ease if she was to be beside you, Sharon? Well, he wasn't wrong. My lady is nervous. Seemingly taken by surprise at the turn of the conversation, my lady glances backward at me, looking for help. The prince must have planned this. Instead of a table set for only 2 people facing each other, there are additional seats to the side. Plural. Not just 1, but 2 seats. The silence continues. I glance at the prince to see that his perpetual smile is still there, but his eyes are darting to the side. I see. I am grateful for your consideration, Your Highness. However, I am but a maid. It would be better if there was another man. True. In that case, Prince Joel pretend to look around without even trying to make it look natural, and he calls for the only other man in the room. Andy, would you join us? Me, Your Highness? Andy hesitantly speaks, his brows set in a slight frown even as he already had an inkling of where the conversation is going. Your Highness, I'm a protector. I cannot protect you if I am seated at the same table. This is the academy, and the only people in this room are those I trust. You're the heir of a marquis as well, Andy. There is no problem. But, of course, even if the prince is saying that, common sense would still tell you there is a problem. Seeing that Andy continues to be so straight-laced, Prince Joel gives me another glance. I would be the one least trusted here, am I not? Letty. My lady speaks up, shocked. Which is why Sir Andy should sit with me and keep watch. Otherwise, it would simply be not proper for me to sit with my lady and Your Highness. It's sophistry, pure and simple, but Prince Joel still nods deeply at my words. Don't keep a lady waiting, Andy. Understood. Right, you two are childhood friends, aren't you? I'll let you catch up on old times. Besides, rarely have I a chance to talk with Miss Verity here. I am honored, Your Highness. I say with a bow. Prince Joel's 2 maids pull out the neighboring seats, and I sit with His Highness. Andy gives a sigh of resignation and sit down in front of my lady. Sir Andy. It's been a while, Miss Sharon. So, you look beautiful. I was honestly stunned. Thank you. Then the 2 blushing people just stay silent. They don't even touch the food. Prince Joel and his senior maids watch them with smirks on their faces. Finding myself with nothing to do, I begin to put away 4 people's worth of food into my stomach. It is during my meal that Prince Joel leans near me and whispers. So how do you find my plan, Miss Verity? Apparently the prince has some degree of awareness about what's going on between the 2 of them. Let's see. I shall return your score from the negative back to 0. Then, I whisper back, wiping my mouth with a napkin. His Highness slumps face down on the table. I guess I'll have to be satisfied with getting your approval for today. Really, what did he mean by that? On a separate and unrelated note, Prince Joel has also given me what amounted to a word of warning, I suppose. While I've noticed that the noble ladies are acting somewhat strange, I am more concerned about the rumor that a certain dukedom has made contact with some people in the church. Miss Verity, please stay vigilant. Lady Sharon might need you by her side. I/N. Joel hasn't ever disliked Sharon in the first place. He wouldn't reject her if she ever becomes his fiancée, but he has also faintly realized that her feelings aren't for him. The maid might have given him a failing grade, but he isn't actually dense. Chapter 23, Plots I/N, a relatively serious chapter. Andy de Mercia was the personal bodyguard knight for Joel, the second prince of Argry Kingdom. Andy had a brother and a childhood friend, a girl. Both of them were 9 years younger than him. The girl was the only daughter of a knight, a woman named Kyria, who was the bodyguard knight assigned to the prince before Andy took up her position, as well as being his teacher. Andy had doted on the girl. He had treated her as though she was his own sister, partly because Kyria had married into a marquis house, while Andy was also born of a marquis family himself. He wondered when the rift between them formed. Was it when her mother, Kyria, passed away in an accident that everyone knew wasn't one? Was it when he took over Kyria's duty to become Prince Joel's bodyguard, when his responsibilities meant he no longer had the spare time to visit her? Or was it when his brother Carl lashed out against her and drove a wedge into their relationship? Somewhere inside him, he already knew the answer. It was when she, the girl whose mother had been taken away much too soon, embarked on her endeavor to become the most exemplary noble she could be, and was finally rewarded with a position among Prince Joel's fiancé candidates. He had seen her, had watched her journey. He thought she was much too dazzling for him. And he blamed himself as well, for not being there for her when kindness was what she had needed the most. There hadn't been a single clear-cut reason. If it wasn't one thing then it was another, and they all combined to drive the two further and further apart. Before he knew it, he found she had already become independent. Loneliness turned into aloofness. As he watched her continuing effort to be the lofty noble she wanted to be, he found there was no longer anything he could say to her. He gave up. She was a fiancé candidate to royalty now. Their relationship could never return to how it had been. Then one day, the girl began to change. It was the day of the summoning of partners from another world that she and Prince Joel had participated in. Or more specifically, when the summoned black-haired girl became her partner. Sharon then began to let go of her tension, no longer trying to hold herself together with a rope so tautly strung it seemed like it might snap at any moment. She regained the warm tenderness that a girl of her age should have. It didn't matter if the former was the proper way of being a noble. Her armor of ice had melted away to reveal a sunny smile, surprising everyone who knew her. The more familiar they were of her, the more pronounced their shock, and the more her smile enchanted them. Before he knew it, Andy found his eyes were already naturally chasing after her. It was then that he had his realization. Just as he followed her with his gaze, so was she doing the same with her own. And whenever their gazes inevitably meet, she would turn away as though surprised, her cheeks burning red and her eyes growing moist. Upon the sight, he had no choice but to realize that the girl was no longer the baby sister that he had always seen her as. She was now a woman that took his breath away. One day, his friend came to visit him. "Hey, Andy, it's been a while." Elias. How unexpected. The two were close in age, with Elias being the more skilled knight. The holy knight had always seemed rather detached from reality, however, and Andy couldn't help but fuss over him. Elias, too, grew to see Andy as a reliable friend. The pious holy knight was the church's most valued treasure, and there was a large gap between him and the kingdom's knights. He rarely left the church. It made his visit today all the more curious. Elias' perpetual smile gained a hint of wryness as he spoke. "To be honest, there's this girl I've been thinking about. As there are no classes today, I and my lady have gone to the Salt Dungeon located to the east of the capital. Another name for it is the Third Dungeon." "Hey, Letty, isn't it supposed to be the other way around?" "Yet there are still some among the populace who aren't aware that its official name is the Third Dungeon. My lady, I suppose it's true that the salt has been a boon for us as well, but still." "And so we come to the reason why we are here at the dungeon today, to earn money. After my lady's reconciliation with her family, we now have the proper financial support. All the same, public money is accompanied by quite a few restrictions, and so we also need to have some slush fund available. I'm not sure why, but I feel like we're doing something illicit here." "It is because the majority of our budget has been used for your sweets. My lady, I don't eat that much." Of course you don't." "Can you not say that while pinching my arms, Letty?" "As I have been giving her viscously sweet drinks practically every day, my lady's weight has unfortunately exceeded the average by a slight margin." "Well, she used to be on the other side of the bell curve anyway. Back then, she didn't even have the money for snacks. Even if she gains weight now, Most of it is still going to her chest. It's not that much of a problem. Using magic consumes calories. My lady, please do your best. Am I so fat I need to exercise in a dungeon now? My lady begins to pinch her belly, looking horrified. As she has rolled up her upperwear at the dungeon entrance, many of the male explorers nearby are now staring at her, hoping to catch a glimpse of heaven. I gently stop her. A lady must never show her skin so readily, my lady, I whisper. Ah! My lady turns bright red and immediately straightens up her clothes, but her cuteness has not gone unobserved. The ears of the young male explorers and even the guild officers' staff members have all grown dumber-sized in trying to listen in on us. This won't do. No matter how adorable my lady is, I still cannot allow her to be exposed to such salacious eyes. As her maid, it is my duty to save her from the indignity, even if it means bearing it myself. My lady, according to the current measurement system, I would consider myself to be between B and C. Letty. All the men's eyes snap toward my direction not a moment later. For someone who'd just been a middle schooler not so long ago, it is a rather respectable size. Incidentally, I should respond to my lady's earlier question as well. We are not going to the dungeon to lose weight, my lady, but for funds, as it is now necessary to replace your wardrobe. My lady has outgrown underwear that are 2 sizes bigger than mine, after all. What are you saying? What are you saying? 2 shouts overlap. The former is my lady's, her face beat red to her ears, her hand once more holding the slipper after she has used it on my head. I wonder whose voice was the latter? Sir Andy? Hey, Andy, who has popped up out of nowhere, smiles at my lady. His eyes wander. Sir Andy? No, it's nothing, Miss Sharon. Nothing at all. And here I am, going through all that efforts to divert attention from my lady only to have it end in vain. Everyone is looking at her again. Similarly, Andy's gaze would drop the moment he loses his focus. The male physiology is quite inconvenient, it seems. But, well, there are men who don't let it show on their face at all, too. It is good to see you again, Miss Verity. My, Sir Elias. I am honored to be treated with such respect. There's that holy knight from the church too. As we conclude our merry greetings, a question comes to my mind. Why are you here, Sir Elias? I ask, sending a glance to his back. In a moment of realization, he turns around to introduce the 2 boys behind him. The church has received a request from His Highness Joel, and I am here to help these 2 partner candidates acclimatize to the dungeon. Hey there, Kamishiro. Hello. The 2 boys say, one confidently, one hesitantly. Greetings. Indeed, it has been quite some time, I reply. They are students of the middle school class that had been summoned from Earth. Their names are... So anyway, as the economy of this country depends quite a lot on dungeons, it is certainly better for them, being partner candidates for nobles, to be acquainted with the dungeon sooner rather than later. I suppose the faint blushes on their cheeks had come about after they listened to our earlier conversation. They are healthy young boys, after all. I can't fault them for dropping their gazes from time to time when speaking with me. And if I am already having such an effect on them, then I can only imagine how much more devastating my lady would be to their attention span. So, they've come here with a capable member of the church, probably so that they wouldn't have to worry about wounds and injuries. But then why was Elias, the Holy Knight himself, the one deployed for the task? Miss Sharon, would you go to the dungeon with us? Only if you don't mind, of course. Why yes, I would like to, Sir Andy. But before I can voice my question, they have already concluded their talk. Kamishiro, that's an amazing weapon. Can I hold it for a moment? Go ahead. I gives my Orc Killer X. It doesn't stay a second in his hands before slamming into the ground, not budging an inch. In the end, the 6 of us all went into the dungeon together. This is going to hurt our earnings a bit, but I can negotiate with Andy to make up for it later. The 2 boys, Us and Genki. Of course I remember their names. Us is one of the leaders of the boys in class. Meanwhile, Genki isn't a student I remember ever speaking with before. He has a sort of cuteness that reminds me of my lady's younger brother. Right now, he is desperately trying to make conversation with her. This is heavy, says, struggle evident in his voice. Let me have a look, Elias says from besides, and he lifts the spiked bat. He's a holy knight all right, though it seems holding it one-handed is still much too taxing for him. With a slight frown, He stabilizes the weapon with both hands and inspects it. It is amazing, certainly, but is something wrong? I ask. No, you make it look so easy, Kaneshiro says with a chuckle. I'm feeling a bit emasculated right now. These may not be the words to use to talk about a boy the same age as me, but I really think he's a good kid. It is impressive the way he managed to get everyone to relax with just a word or two. You're very much a normie. It doesn't sound like a compliment when you say it right to my face without batting an eye, Kaneshiro. Oh no, it is. Considering the fact that the maid chief used to say I'm wormy right to my face without batting an eye, it's very much a compliment. Miss Furity, thank you. Oh, it's nothing, sir. As he returns my spiked club, he takes the occasion to caress the back of my hand as well. If the occasion permits, please allow me to gift you a weapon more suitable. Something more suitable for me? A chainsaw? I hope it's a chainsaw. I and Elias move forward as the vanguard. Suddenly, Genki shouts, watch out. There are traps. He must have some sort of detection skill. Trap detection, maybe. That's all very fine and good, but I do wish he had said his warning before I stepped on the trap. Letty, my lady screams as the magic circle below me lights up. From what I can see, the trap's range is likely to envelop both me and Elias. Seeing no need to let the trap catch me if I can help it, I decide to immediately retreat. It is then that Elias catches my hand. When my vision clears, there are only the two of us. This must be a room somewhere in the dungeon, somewhere quite far from my lady. Teleportation, is it? It certainly seems so. Elias replies. There are teleportation traps in this dungeon, but only on the bottom floor. Certainly not on the middle floors where we used to be. How curious. Sir Elias, why did you hold me back? I expect that just like me, he could have escaped at any time. Elias replies with his unchanging cheer. Sorry about that. The reason? Well, I suppose I simply wanted to be alone with you, that's all. Is that so? We look at each other, the same smile on our faces, both of us moving back a step unprompted. Elias slowly unsheaths his sword and points it at me. Miss Furity. Who are you? I/N. Next chapter, what goes on in the knight's mind? Everyone, I think it's time to start worrying for the maid. Chapter 24, Holy Night. I/N. This chapter's serious too. Probably, on a snowbound night, a baby was found on the doorsteps of one of the church's establishment. He was taken in and placed in an orphanage. The child would one day become Elias Loewe, the holy knight of the church. As a boy, Elias was already deeply devout. On one fateful day, the goddess granted him an oracle, and with the talent for Chi that he displayed, much was expected of him. An archbishop from the capital's church had discovered his talents and adopted him, hoping that one day he would join the church as a clergyman. Yet it was not the path of priesthood that Elias had chosen, but one of knighthood instead. This country relied heavily on the resources produced by its dungeons. As such, there was no lack of explorers who had lost their lives in the dungeons, whose children were then placed in the orphanage. Elias had grown up with them as his brothers and sisters. He thought that if he became a knight, then he could prevent the tragedies from repeating. Children would no longer have their parents taken away too soon. And then, with his innate talent and years of effort, he was finally granted the title of the Holy Knight, a title that the church had not bestowed to anyone for hundreds of years. Elias was incredibly popular with the fairer sex. He was young, being only in his early 20s, and he already held a high position within the church, as well as being the strongest knight of Agri Kingdom. He was nothing like the kind of arrogant nobles that had nothing else beside good looks and status, or the priests within the church who would demand bribes and favors. He always treated everyone with the utmost respect and grace, be they men, women, children, or the elderlies, and his smile never waned. But Elias was entirely unconcerned with romance. It was not because of the church, as the establishment still allowed its members to marry. His lack of interest was because of the goddess. Ever since receiving the oracle when he was a child, he had been called the goddess beloved. Not only had he heard her voice, he had even seen her in his dreams time after time. Legends had it that the only people who have beheld the goddess were the kingdom's founder and his queen, the saints who would appear only every few centuries, and heroes who have saved the country. It was said that the goddess was a beautiful girl midway through her teens, with hair of silver and eyes of sapphire. Her form, ideal, perfectly designed, was a sight that Elias had seen again and again ever since his childhood, all the way through his puberty and after. It was no wonder, then, that he showed not much interest in normal women. Not so long ago, he received another oracle. A foreign existence has sullied this world. It has yet to show itself, but soon the terrible thing would bring chaos and destruction. Of that, I am certain. Among the knowledge that the goddess had granted to the people was the summoning spell to call upon intelligent beings from another world. And so Elias thought if the goddess herself had shown such apprehension for this intruder, then he could only imagine how evil, how horrible the monster must be. Some time after the oracle, the barrier erected by the saint of old was broken. Elias had thought it an act of the invader, the irregularity, in order to prepare for their coming. He was alarmed. And then, Elias met a girl. She was a noble's maid. A girl with an exotic beauty that could not be found anywhere else in this country. Her mane of silky obsidian, serene orbs of wine red, and fair features without a hint of imperfection weren't anything he'd seen before, even among the noble caste full of handsome men and women. But despite her looks, she'd never displayed a hint of vanity, always prioritizing the noble lady that she served above all else. He thought she was lovely. But a more accurate statement would be that he was struck. Being so used to the sight of the goddess, Elias had never known the feeling of fear. It was why when he saw the girl for the first time, he thought the chill running down his spine was his racing heart. It was the first time he ever thought he wanted to get to know someone. And the more he found out about her, the more mysterious she seemed. From what he heard, she had been summoned from another world. Yet despite being born in a land without the noble caste, she was as professional as a maid of the palace, displaying abilities that could easily make her a partner to one of the royal family if she so wished. She served her mistress as a perfect maid, at times supporting her as a friend. Then one day, the second prince made a request to escort the partner candidates in their dungeon delving. He wasn't going to accept at first. But then he found out that his friend Andy, the Imperial Knight, was joining, and there was a possibility that the maid girl would participate as well. Finally, he was also curious about the matter that Lady Chiri, the young lady who had come to help erect the barrier, had told him about. He decided to go. Miss Flaherty. Who are you? Elias says, pointing his sword at me. There's really only one answer I can give. I am Lady Sharon's personal maid. Perfect answer, and not even a twitch on his face. His previous question had been similarly airy as well. There's not a single gap in his composure. Quite the troublesome character. He may even be one of those heroes type that I had once heard from the maid chief. Then how is it that such a simple maid is capable of wielding such a weapon? What do you mean, sir? Is there something wrong with this orc killer? While I'd done a bit of an upgrade on it, it's still nothing more than a weapon made to kill orcs. There's nothing unnatural about it. That weapon is cursed, is it not? A curse powerful enough to sap the life of its wielder and drive them toward death simply by proximity. If it hadn't been for the holy element that I and Mistress possessed, we would have been similarly affected. Yet I feel no such holiness from you. I am my lady's maid. As long as my will stands strong, nothing can defeat me. Willpower. Curses don't mean a thing if you have guts. I even heard from somewhere that the people of old used to power through incurable diseases with just guts and charcoal tablets. Has the Holy Knight pointed his sword on a civilian because of such a trivial reason? Trivial, you say? My brothers and sisters in the church would disagree, I'm sure. Besides, I must admit I'm rather curious about your strength. Is that so? He's even more of a hassle than I thought. May I trouble you for a short duel, miss? Then, allow me. Elias readies his sword and shield. I loosely grasp my spiked club. Ready yourself. The moment he makes the announcement, his sword speeds toward me in a stab. I block with the handle of my spiked club, and metal hit metal. Impressive. I was just lucky, sir, I say, swinging my weapon upward. Elias takes a step backward and parries with his shield. Indeed, he's no common soldier. Almost as if he's a game character among a crowd full of normal, real people. That was scary. What are you saying, sir? You look like you didn't even break a sweat. If I truly want to defeat him, I'd have to go 100% all out. At the moment, however, there are still too many mysteries around the immortal people and about his abilities. Oh well, that's for later. I'll have to deal with this first. Clang. Holy light. I deflect an arrow that had been aimed at my back with my club, while Elias fires a spell of light toward the source of the arrow. What are you doing, Sir Elias? That's my line. Elias says, a hint of exasperation on his face. The attackers are four youths wearing full metal armor. Their familiarity with Elias and the holy sigils on their chests identified them as members of the church. What is the meaning of this? Your mission was nothing more than getting Miss Flaherty alone with me, was it not? Looks like that trap was set by Elias here. I am appalled, Sir Elias. My apologies, my lady. There were some strange rumors I had to investigate. Elias says, bowing to me while his sword is pointed at the men who look to be the church's warrior priests. They shout, sounding outraged. Sir Elias, she does not deserve such respect. Indeed, that maid and her mistress have been planning to inflict harm upon His Highness Joel and Lady Camilla, and they hold malice against the church, too. And where did you hear that from? A quiet aura of murderous anger surrounds Elias. Their warrior priests whimper, their faces paling. That is not what I have heard. Elias continues. The virtuous miss has been extolled as the next possible saint, sir. She could not have lied to us. It is unthinkable. And Lady Camilla has also corroborated the matter, sir. Right, I see now, Elias says, a hand rubbing his forehead as though to relieve a headache. That was some rather terrible slander. I would not have minded if it had been only me, but to have insulted my lady so. Elias speaks, seemingly sensing my ire. Miss Flaherty, apologies for losing my composure, sir. Do you believe them? He smiles. Our clash just now told me everything I needed to know. I hadn't felt any ill thoughts from you. And besides, I really did want to have a chance to spend some time alone with you. With his words, my anger lessens as well. Though I must say, he is correct in believing I hold no ill thoughts. I don't think, after all, I do everything by instinct. As they watch us, one of the warrior priests shouts, we shall bring judgment upon her. The two of you, keep Sir Elias occupied. One will accompany me to take her down. Why yes, Miss Flaherty. Elias turns to me and says, while they may be somewhat, well, immature, they aren't malicious by nature. So, do not worry, sir. They won't die. Move out. With the signal from the apparent leader of the group, the four-person group split into two pairs. A pair heads for me. You have disturbed Our Lady Saint's peace of mind for the last time. We shall. Nice shot. My orc killer X sends one of them flying with a single strike. The man smashes into the ceiling of the dungeon, then drops like a squashed frog. On the ground, he continues to twitch, his eyes rolled back in their sockets and his hands pressed tight against his crotch. Silence descends upon the room. No one moves an inch. They're all clenching their legs together, I notice. Well then, I say, moving toward the leader. No, stay away. Stay away. No signs of his previous courage remains. As he is protecting his crotch with his shield, I give him a gentle tap on his helmet instead, sending him into a momentary daze. As he gets unsteady on his feet, I sweep his legs, catching them and raising them up high. His lower body is now exposed. No, stop, Miss Flaherty. Elias exclaims. Nice shot. The man gurgles. There is no need to worry. Their armor has protected them from death. I turn around with a cheerful grin, and the rest of the warrior priests immediately prostrate themselves flat on the ground. Sir Elias also sits down on his legs, with his back ramrod straight. I wonder why. It is now after the battle. Sir Elias is looking rather upbeat. This might be the first time I have been chastised by a lady, he said. He then informs me of the reason for his deception. Miss Flaherty, I have been told that you are manipulating Lady Sharon in a plot to take over her noble house. Who told you that, sir? It was Lady Chiri. Lady Camilla and a maid of the Michelle Marquis house named Mia have also given me their testimonies. After her repair of the church's barrier, Lady Chiri has acquired a significant amount of support among the younger priests. They must have moved out on her words alone, I would expect. Hearing our conversation, one of the still prostrating priests feebly mumbles, madam, A few of our fellow priests have also moved out against the young Michelle lady. What? Elias replies with a grimace, his voice tense. Those ladies have really done it now. It seems I will have to give them some house dry. Some admonishment. I/N. Elias is a super innocent boy. He's such a good kid, he's never been scolded before, and since his standard for women is the goddess, the adorable and intense maid really piqued his interest. Don't go there, Elias, that way lies madness. Chapter 25. The two. I/N. We get quite a bit of vitamin Sharon this time. In the dungeon, Sharon's maid and irreplaceable friend, Fluority had been caught in a teleportation trap and had disappeared. The young lady panicked. Letty, where did she go? Come on, we have to hurry. Sharon, it's fine, look at me, Andy said, frantically trying to calm her down. Elias is with Miss Fluority. He is the greatest knight of our Grey Kingdom. Her safety is guaranteed. In his hurry, he hadn't noticed how he had gotten close to her, had talked to her the way he used to a long time ago. Why yes, right. Andy's reminder and her own knowledge of Fluority's strength helped her regain a measure of composure. Her friend had promised her they would always be together. Fluority was a strange girl, she thought, but more than anyone else, she also knew that her maid wasn't one to break promises. When did we make that promise again? Sharon was sure of it, that they had sworn to become friends, that they would never be apart, and yet in her memories, there was no recollection of when it had happened, nor how. There was only their bond carved deep into her mind, into her heart. Although, why is there a teleportation trap so close to the entrance? Do you know if this has happened before, Sharon? No, I do not. With her reply, Sharon's thoughts changed tracks. Had she been able to remember what she had forgotten, then perhaps she could have gained a hint of Fluority's identity, but as it was, she pushed the matter out of her mind. She simply chalked it up to Letty being Letty again. A teleportation trap's destination would be somewhere on the same floor. There are no monsters on this floor that could hurt them, and we have the floor's map as well. I'm sure we can find them. Why yes. That's true. Sharon was anxious, he noticed, but somehow it felt as though she was worrying about something else. Sharon? He asked. No, it is nothing. But Sharon, midway through his words, he finally noticed his inadvertent return to their old familiarity. My apologies, Lady Sharon. No, I wasn't worrying about that. Besides, I also thought it was nice. It takes me back. By the end of her words, her eyes had pointed slightly downward, her ears blushing red. Andy similarly looked away, finding himself unable to look directly at her. If only there was someone here to prevent the awkwardness. Let's search for them. The dungeon's map is with Mr. Genki. Andy spoke, trying to get their conversation back on track, and only then did he remember the existence of their other companions, the two middle schoolers from Earth. Wait, where are they? Sharon asked in puzzlement. Misters. They noticed one of the middle schoolers, lying on the ground of a hallway some distance away, and they hurried toward him. Fortunately, he was unhurt, only unconscious. Andy took out some smelling salts and woke up, albeit still groggy. Misters, what happened? Where is Mr. Genki? Sorry, I'm not sure what happened either. I just suddenly felt so sleepy. S replied. He then explained that he could still remember what happened until the trap activated, but immediately afterward, an intense drowsiness had assaulted him. He only woke up just now thanks to Andy. Where is he? Only Genki was nowhere to be seen. As far as Andy recalled, Genki hadn't been caught by the trap. He should have been with Sharon at the back of their group. Maybe he'd gone ahead alone? Smuttered. What? Both Andy and Sharon's faces paled. Genki was the one to possess a detection skill, and he was in charge of the dungeon map and checking for traps. Andy and Sharon thought he might have felt responsible for discovering the trap too late and letting it catch Elias and Fluority, and so he had gone alone to search for them. He might have put me to sleep since he thought we would stop him. Said. We should move immediately. With his strength, I do not think this floor is very safe for him. Andy said, looking at Sharon. Yes, Sir Andy. The three began to search through the floor's rooms, impatience bubbling inside them. Searching even a single floor was a daunting task. An old dungeon not only had more floors, but each floor was growing larger as well. Each of the circularly shaped floors of this third dungeon were as large as a baseball field. Ice Javelin. Sharon's recent intense training had been rewarded. Her current magic control had gotten much better. While her spells were still sometimes too wasteful and sometimes too weak, it was a vast improvement considering that brute force area of damage spells used to be all that she was capable of. Now, the giant lizard was slowed down by the ice javelin, held in place by Andy, and sliced apart with his sword skill. The enemies of this floor hadn't posed much of a threat to the three of them. Being the defender of the group, Andy had gotten slightly scratched and hit by some light poisons, but Sharon was able to treat him with her newly learned Jekyll spells. Thank you. No, Don't mind it. It was neither the time nor the place for them to be embarrassed, but then again, perhaps it might be expecting too much out of these two. Andy, Sharon. There's something on the ground over there, shouted, pointing toward the other end of the hallway behind the giant lizard's corpse. Ah, yeah, got it. Things left on the ground in the dungeon, whether it be an object or a corpse, would vanish in time. This was a phenomenon that everyone in this world took for granted. One of the current theories was that they were reabsorbed by the dungeon, while another claimed they were eaten by slimes. As yet, there was still no proof either way. Seeing that the object was still there for them to find, the implication was clear. This is, yes, likely, this was Genki's equipment. It was a dagger, still brand new. It could have belonged to some other explorer, but generally, explorers that could go in this deep would have gone dungeon delving for long enough to have their reserve weapon show signs of previous usage. He should be deeper in. Let's hurry. The thought of Genki being attacked by monsters passed through their minds. The two advanced into the hallway. From the darkness, an arrow sped toward them. Sharon! Andy shouted, raising his shield to block the arrow. Ah, who's there? Show yourself. In dungeons, there were tool-using monsters such as goblins and kobolds, but most of their equipment were either taken from explorers or hands-me-down. Weapons as pristine as the arrow shot at the two of them were rarely in the hands of monsters. There was only one conclusion to be made. They're people, right? Looks that way. Andy moved in front of Sharon and raised his shield protectively, while she gripped her staff with trembling hands, ready to support him. His face paled, his fingers in a white-knuckled grip around his sword. This would be the first time he went against a human opponent. Sharon, can you cast the illumination spell? Yes. Summoned by Sharon, a ball of light, somewhat overcharged with magic, floated into the hallway depths. Perhaps unable to dispel the light, several people jumped out from the hallway's shadows. Who are you? Why are you? Shut up. It's all your fault, pestilent wretch. What? They were wearing the typical equipment for explorers as well as masks, so Sharon had thought they were murderers or bandits lying in wait. But once the ostensible leader of the group, a woman, shouted invectives back at her, she was puzzled. She was sure she had heard that voice before. Have I done anything to you? You ruined everything. The woman screamed, then abruptly returned her volume back to normal as she turned to her group, her voice affected and without a hint of sincerity. Right. Subdue that girl. For the saint. For the saint. For the goddess. They responded with fervor. Several men wielding maces inched forward. Andy stayed in front of Sharon as the two retreated step by step. Hearing what they had let slip and seeing the holy sigils on their chests, Andy came to the conclusion that they were fanatic believers of the goddess. Madmen who ignored the church to commit murders while still proclaiming the goddess' name. Rarely seen, but not non-existent. Andy knew that even if the two of them surrendered, there was no guarantee they would be spared. Their opponents numbered 5. If only we have just one more person, Andy thought. Finally, your luck runs out here, you, boop. Huh? Feeling a hand on her shoulder from out of nowhere, the woman turned around. Standing behind her was the lovely black-haired maid with a blossoming grin that sent an ice-cold rod down her spine. Hello, everyone. It is me, Furity. A very satisfied maid after I've kicked the woman in the comma, pumping her full of and causing her to enact a scene that I would prefer not to describe. Letty, I'm back, Lady Sharon. My lady runs toward me with teary eyes, looking so adorable that I couldn't help but pick her up, spinning her around and ending it with a hug. I'm not a kid anymore. My apologies. I was simply going into withdrawal after being too long without your essence. What even is my essence? Gosh, my lady. Are you really making your pure and innocent maid answer that? Miss Furity. Their identities were as I expected. While I was busying the woman leading the group, Elias had finished dealing with the others and has returned. So they really were from the church, then. Who is she? Just an acquaintance, sir. This woman was the personal maid of Joanna the Michelle Marquis house. Her name is Mia. She also used to belong to the house of Bala that no longer existed. Perhaps she has been dreaming that she could take control of the Marquis house once again if my lady was to disappear. At the moment, she probably has more of my medicine than blood now. Her mouth is agape, her cheeks wet with drool, and her eyes are unfocused. Sweet dreams, Mia. By the way, Genki is one of the masked people. Genki? Whispers, looking pained. Andy grimly followed with a question. Mr. Genki, Why have you done this? I didn't want to. Lady Camilla told me Lady Sharon was up to no good, so I was just. Genki fearfully mutters. Yet I wonder why it looks as though he's being scared of me, when Elias was the one to have taken him down. Did he see what I did to Mia? Well, I can deal with that memory later. And yet you seemed to be quite willing to attack us, weren't you? Upon hearing my words, Genki's whole body twitches. From what I saw, he didn't exactly hesitate in his attempt to harm my lady. A possibility passes through my mind. I whisper into his ear. Has your heart been taken by Lady Camilla, Genki? His face immediately burns red. For some reason, the words "a private after-school lesson" pass through my mind. I wonder what they mean. It sounds like a title. Perhaps best to not tell my lady. Sir Elias, Sir Andy, may I trouble you to process these men? I would like to take Mia and Genki into my custody. I admit that it'd be simpler for us, but are you sure? Elias asks me back. Yes, I am, I say as I give him a slight nod. There's no guarantee we won't get our arms twisted if we try to prosecute these two. After all, what will you do now? Andy asks, his worried gaze on my lady. Oh, my, has something happened between them? We will return to the academy, of course. There is much to do, I reply. I'll make sure they won't get out of this scot-free. That aside, it seems Genki here is still very excited. The dorm mother can help calm his nerves, I think. I/N. The dorm mother continued to be terrified of her horse carriage. It's been a while since the last time she could go downtown to buy some young men. Chapter 26, Trial. Lady Sharon, today's tea is made from some high-quality leaves given to me by the dorm mother. Here is a slice of chocolate cake to accompany. She sure has changed, hasn't she? She used to be so strict. We have made it back to the academy safely. The souvenir I'd brought back had been very well received by the dorm mother, and I'd also given her a homemade special concoction that would give her so much energy she wouldn't need sleep or food for a while. She probably wouldn't leave her room for 2, maybe 3 days. So was there too, and he had on a 1,000-yard stare after he witnessed my transaction. Oh, my apologies, I almost forgot. Hello, everyone. It is me, Furity, friend and ally to all big girls. Perhaps the dorm mother has found true love. My lady. That is wonderful. Though I don't think the woman is in any state of mind to be finding anything at the moment. That aside, as her maid, I'm somewhat worried for my lady. She has such a sweet tooth, and yet the snacks today are still mostly uneaten. My lady, do you prefer more calories in your sweets? Don't make it sound like I like calories. Really? She says, pouting as she downs the second plate of chocolate cake. I still think something's wrong with her. She's only just finished her second plate. I set the third plate of chocolate cake on the table, my worries still unassuaged. As my lady sets on it with her cutleries, she releases a faint sigh. So my lady really wants more calories, then? That's not what I'm thinking about. I'm still worried about the matter with Lady Camilla. There's also Lady Chiri, too. Ah, I see. Since long ago, my lady has always tried to be strong in the face of all who wanted to do her harm, but it still doesn't change the fact that she has the heart of a little rabbit. Overt malice still hurts her. My lady needs not worry. Leave it all to me. We're already back at the academy, but the two of them have still not been punished. I could just go and deal with them myself, but I am only a maid to Lady Sharon, while Camilla is the young lady of a dukedom. Doing anything to her would only bring trouble upon my lady. It'd be simple if I could kill her. Leaves no evidence that way, too. Then again, she's probably one of those mysterious immortals anyway, and it'd be a mess if I try to kill her and she doesn't die. High nobles really are quite troublesome. I can simply pump her full of drugs if worse comes to worst, but making her disappear as cleanly as I did with the former Marquis Madam would be a lot trickier. Even so, this is not a problem I should inconvenience my lady for. I give her a smile. She keeps her gaze fixed on me, and she takes my hand. Letty, I'm worried for you. I'm happy you care so much for me, but I would hate it if you were to be hurt because of me. My lady, I could barely believe it. My lady worries for me. She would care for such a monster as me. Oh, how should I convey this feeling? How should I describe this wonderful moment? My lady, I'm thinking of selling a song to extol your virtues. Should I register for a copyright first? How is that the result of our conversation? As it is, I have no other way to express my gratitude other than adding some whipped cream on the plate of chocolate cake. Is there anything I can help with? she asks in earnest. As I wipe off the cream stuck on her lips, I consider the idea. Then, may I have your assistance with a small matter, my lady? Aha! It's working out well. In a room that the church has set aside for saints only, Chari chuckled. After re-establishing the barrier of the church's cathedral, she had been welcomed with open arms. For the first time in centuries, the church had a new saint. Due to her upbringing as the daughter of a family operating a shrine, she was used to religious work, and there were occasions when she had to meet with the mayor as the shrine priestess as well. She knew how to present herself, and so it wasn't long before the brothers and sisters of the church all believed Chari to be the next coming of the saint. This world only ever had one single, monotheistic religion. It had never known any sort of religious wars such as those in the modern world of Earth, where blood was only washed away with more blood. Chari didn't have much trouble bringing the naive believers under her thumb. Her plans made use of a generic event that would only happen for a saint player character. In the original game, this was an incident that would be orchestrated by the villainous Camilla alone, after the player had raised their likability with an adult capture target that was in their 20s or older. With her charms, Camilla would get the Academy's students and staff wrapped in her little finger. She would order the attack, and it would fail after the heroine received an oracle from the goddess. Camilla would then be cast out from the academy. So Chiri had given nudges to Camilla, turning her against Sharon and her partner, Kamishiro. But if nothing else was done, then there was a chance it would end in failure just like in the game. To that end, Chiri had also surreptitiously riled up the believers for a second assault. Sharon was only a villainous one who would receive no oracles. There was no escape for her. Chiri was sure her plan would succeed. Chiri wasn't going to kill the two of them. She didn't have the nerve to do it in the first place. She was only going to get them confined by the men for a few days in order to cast doubt on their purity, and subsequently, their images in the eyes of the capture targets would be heavily damaged. That was all she wanted. The in-game church also received the same official request to have a member accompany the group into the dungeon. But the way it went in the game, nobody accepted the request, and the group should only have the Imperial Knight Andy with them. Chiri thought it wasteful that Andy would be a collateral victim, but as her targets were only Eric Marsaur the instructor and Elias the Holy Knight, she didn't think it much of a problem. To finish, she would only need to push all the blame on Camilla, and then she should be able to reach the next event, the Stampede, without any problems. At the moment, although Chiri was still staying at the church to create her alibi, she thought it was about time she should return to the academy. In the game, Eric Marsaur would suspect his near-stalker, Camilla, the heroine who was the victim, Andy the Knight, and Eric would come together to prosecute Camilla. But since the victim this time was kidnapped, Chiri, with the oracle she had received, would replace her to prosecute Camilla instead. She would be accompanied by Eric and Elias, who replaced Andy. She was sure these members would be enough to get even a Duke's young lady to be pronounced guilty. And even if she hadn't actually gotten an oracle, Chiri was still the person the church regarded as the next saint. She believed her words held more than enough weight to convince everyone that the goddess had spoken to her. All right. Gotta go talk to Elias quick. Why is nobody here? Elias almost never left the church, yet now Chiri couldn't find him anywhere. When she returned to the academy, the students were making noises about how somebody had been attacked in the dungeon. It seemed the event was proceeding as she expected, but she found it strange that she couldn't see Eric anywhere when he was supposed to be the one to reveal the culprit and prosecute them together with her. Why was it that all of a sudden, she couldn't find both the people necessary for the trial? When she asked the other professors, strangely enough, they wouldn't tell her. At the same time, she couldn't be seen close to the culprit Camilla either. Chiri could do nothing but bite her lips in frustration. I don't know anything. Why, what are you doing? Insolence? My family is a dukedom. You hear me? Hearing a shout, Chiri turned her head. She saw the villainous Camilla currently being taken towards the direction of the auditorium by several Imperial Knights. The event's already happening? Chiri screamed in her head. It was supposed to begin only with the presence of the heroine who had received an oracle. With the high degree of freedom the game offered, the event could also happen once enough evidence had been gathered, but in that case, who could have provided that evidence? Let me in, Chiri said. The Imperial Knights standing guard at the auditorium's hall allowed her entrance, But there was one thing she had missed in her haste. This incident was a scandal involving a member of a dukedom. The government would either do the trial behind closed doors, or if the scandal wasn't overly serious, they would ignore it entirely. In the game, the trial was done at the academy as an occasion of education for Prince Joel, and so naturally, noble children wouldn't be allowed in. Even a heroine who had the fortune of being the protagonist wouldn't be let in, unless they were directly involved in the incident. "Are you aware of your crime, Camilla?" "Your Highness Joel, this must be a mistake." "What evidence is there?" Chiri recognized this scene in the game, albeit with some slight differences. In his capacity as the judge, Prince Joel would then call for the witnesses, which would be the player's capture target and the player character themselves. "What's going on?" "I'm right here." "May the witnesses enter." Seeing the witnesses, Chiri opened her eyes wide. It was Sharon, the Marquis young lady who was supposed to have been attacked and kidnapped the other day, and her partner candidate, the girl who had called herself Riti in this world. And not only that, Sharon was even clad in a gorgeous dress instead of her academy uniform, as well as being escorted by the Imperial Knight Tandy. Riti was still wearing her maid uniform, but beside her was the Holy Knight Elias. Even Instructor Eric was with her, if with a stiffened grimace. All in the court was silent, struck by the sight of such beautiful men and women. Even Chiri was lost for words. In the auditorium, the Academy's staff and the knights were all captivated by the sight of Sharon in her lovely dress. Only a few could realize that it was not the young lady's beauty but the oppressive smile of the maid standing unassumingly behind her, of the girl called Riti, that truly ruled this hall. In the bizarre atmosphere of the chamber, Sharon was the picture of elegance and dignity, although a tinge of nervousness colored her face. She stepped forward and spoke, her hand pointing at the suspects. "I, Sharon de Michel, accuse Lady Camilla and Lady Chiri of perpetrating the attack in the dungeon." I/N. The heroine's plans are really quite messy. Chapter 27, Interference. "I, Sharon de Michel, accuse Lady Camilla and Lady Chiri of perpetrating the attack in the dungeon." Struck by the villainous Sharon's accusation, Chiri staggered back, her eyes wide open. The nearby knights silently surrounded her. Chiri tried to talk, but before she could get her words out, the other villainess, Camilla, shouted. It startled Sharon. "Sharon, have you lost your mind? You would dare accuse me, a duke's daughter, of such? We have already notified the Reese dukedom." Prince Joel cut off Camilla, while Andy moved in front of Sharon protectively. "The Duke himself had expressed his wish for you to admit to your crime, Camilla." "No, father. He couldn't have." "This must be a plot to frame me." To Chiri, Camilla's shout sounded 1,000 miles away. Why did this happen, she thought. Why am I here? It should have been me. I should be standing where they are. Before she knew it, Chiri was already glaring at Sharon and Riti. It hadn't escaped Joel's eyes. He scowled. "Lady Chiri, you are one of the partner candidates summoned from another world. I never would have expected such foolishness from you. I understand you have yet to familiarize yourself with this world, but it does not excuse your actions." "No." All strength left Chiri. The knights to her sides caught her as she slumped to the floor, and they carried her forward. While their grasps were gentle still, the moment Chiri tried anything, they would not hesitate to pin her to the floor. Having known no hardships in her life before, the middle school girl was utterly unprepared for the oppressive air of the court. She trembled in fear. Camilla looked at her and smirked. "Speaking of which, I've heard that little girl complaining about how Sharon and her maid kept sticking to Sir Eric and Sir Elias. Is there not the possibility that it was her? That her hideous jealousy had driven her to order the attack?" Chiri gasped. Camilla was trying to push all the blame to her. The woman hadn't been lying. Chiri had told her that, and she was jealous, more or less, but it was all to rile up Camilla. Until now, Chiri had continued to deflect the malice that came her way toward other people. At the moment, it was Kamishiro, the girl who now called herself Riti. And now that Chiri was the one being put on the spot, the one being judged, her frustration was crushing. She ground her teeth, her eyes misty. "She's not saying anything. See? It surely confirms my words," Camilla continued, showing her triumph, when she was once again interrupted, this time by Elias. "May I have a word, Your Honor?" "You may." Joel readily agreed. "Sir Elias," Chiri whispered, convinced that Elias was going to save her, the heroine. Of course he would be. This was the world of a game. When the heroine was in trouble, surely there would be someone to save her. She thought wrong. To my utmost regret, this incident also involved people from the church. My personal interrogation has revealed that Lady Chiri, the next possible saint, had mentioned in passing her displeasure against Lady Sharon and Lady Furity for their perceived deeds. Acting on their impatience, the priests then proceeded to commit the assault. Elias' words only drove Chiri deeper into a corner. She couldn't even refute. She might have not given an explicit order, but nevertheless, it was a fact that she had spoken while forgetting her own position. Her responsibility in the matter was undeniable. See, the little girl did it. And besides, does Sharon also not share part of the blame for her actions? Camilla pushed. Sharon and her maid have done nothing to be criticized for. This time, the woman was refuted by Instructor Eric. Prince Joel nodded and waved for him to continue. I would even go so far as to say that I have not seen any student as earnest and faultless as Sharon. Meanwhile, several male students had told me they were manipulated by Lady Camilla to turn against Sharon and her maid. Impossible! Camilla shouted, outraged. I can corroborate as well. The church's priests had apparently been convinced that their actions were justified, and that it was Lady Camilla who had suggested them so. Elias followed up on Eric's testimony. Camilla was panicking. She cried out in desperation, all meaningless testimonies. Are you saying my words hold less weight than those vulgar priests and students? Where is your evidence? So you want evidence, is it? From the hands of his attendant, Joel took hold of a piece of paper, his disgust toward it apparent. This is a receipt from a back-alley pharmacy documenting a purchase made by the Rees-Duke Dam. The product is, well, it would suffice to say that it is of an extremely sexual nature, and several of the male students have shown the distinctive symptoms. The investigation had also concluded that it was one of Lady Camilla's attendants who had placed the order. The substance detected was a mix of Camilla's usual order and the drug that Furity had given her. Unlike modern Earth, the method to detect residual chemicals that the people of this world utilized was not very precise. But unfortunately for Camilla, the woman had also used in parallel the drug that Furity had made, which was so powerful as to leave after effects for the substance user. More than enough residuals have been detected. Camilla also found it unbelievable that the pharmacist had betrayed her. Had she not spent more than enough to silence the shopkeeper? No one in the court noticed Furity's demonic smirk. What do I do? What do I do? Chiri was seized by panic. The way things were going, Camilla would soon be indicted, which would also mean that Chiri would be forced to confess. Her crime wasn't as heavy as Camilla's, but her prospect of becoming the next saint would be irrevocably beyond her grasp. Even if the church would forgive her, she didn't believe the kingdom would. Everyone would turn away from her. She would no longer be able to clear the game. What do I do? Somebody, goddess, save me. For the very first time, Chiri prayed. Chiri, a girl born of a religious family, a girl who had never believed in gods and deities, who was convinced that the game's goddess was nothing more than a part of the programming, now prayed wholeheartedly upon facing her crisis. She gasped. For the first time, she heard the goddess' voice. Your Highness. A young knight carrying what looked to be a magical communicator ran toward Prince Joel and whispered in his ear. The prince paled. Elias looked to the ceiling and muttered, as though answering a voice only he could hear. Monsters spilling out of the dungeon. It was the most important event for a player going through the saint route, an event where the saint would make use of her holy power to fight against the tide of monsters together with the capture targets, an event marking the heroine's transformation into a true saint. Like a bolt out of the blue, the stampede struck. Well now, if this isn't deliberate then I'm not sure what is. I mutter. The kangaroo court has been interrupted by a sudden outbreak of monsters, and right before the judgment was made too, so of course the Lady Camilla immediately took the chance to run with her subordinates in tow, saying she would keep the monsters at bay and citing her duty as an instructor. She did it all before Prince Joel could recover from his momentary bewilderment and order her capture. Very speedy, she is. I don't know whether she would actually fight or if she was only thinking of running. Well, I have more important things to worry about, at any rate. As for Lady Chiri, she would be going to the front line as a saint by the church's entreaty. She sure is a hard worker. This whole situation is just so convenient for them, and besides, I think Elias also had an oracle from the goddess. Letty, shouldn't we be doing something? So, since it turned out that the trial would be suspended until further notice, I have taken Lady Sharon back to our room for a rest. Today's snack is a baked cheesecake. I personally prefer a more traditional cheesecake, but my lady has been tired. What with everything that has happened today, I believe she would appreciate a cheesecake with a bit more heft in its texture. You are still a student, my lady. There is no need for you to be facing danger. It is the sort of matter best left to the adults, I say, pouring her a cup of fragrant black tea. Well, I guess you're right, but my lady still looks unconvinced as she takes a sip of tea. She must be worried about Andy, who has gone to fight. In this world, 15 is the age of majority, but while my lady's 15th birthday has already passed, she still also needs to graduate the academy before she is legally considered an adult. I give her a reassuring smile. So please, just leave the danger for the gentleman to deal with. You should be relaxing and enjoying the calories that you love so much. I told you, I don't like calories. All the same, I'm sure she is thinking that she should be out there protecting the common people, as is her noblesse oblige. Truly, she is a model for nobles, but as her maid, my own responsibility is to keep her safe. I could only offer my sympathy to Lady Chiri, who has been recruited for the front line. Though I wonder if she would be fine. She doesn't seem to have the necessary training to survive on the battlefield yet. Oh well, there are tons of knights there anyway. No need to worry about her. The knights and soldiers need to work for their pay too, my lady. They sure have it rough. But His Highness Joel is going too. I can't just be sitting here drinking tea. As royalty, the prince has gone ahead to the third dungeon where the stampede has happened. It is why Andy is with him, and also the reason for my lady's worries. It can't be helped, then. For my lady's peace of mind, I would have to ensure Andy's safety. Oh my, what a gaffe. I have forgotten to resupply our store of snack ingredients. Letty. Well, it seems I am not quite a master actress. Then I'll go too. Do not worry, my lady. I am simply visiting a store near the third dungeon. I will be back before you know it. All right. I don't want to say my lady would be useless weight if she accompanies me, but, well, it certainly would be difficult for me to go all out. And besides, some people still need to be punished. Promise me you'll be fine, Letty. Sir Andy and His Highness, too, she says, taking my hand in hers. Leave it to me, my lady. I tightly clasp back and give her a smile. I'm sure all the stores being attacked are having a 100% off sale right now. No, that's not what I'm worried about. I jest, of course. I'm only going to beat the price down to the absolute minimum for the products that are about to be crushed in the chaos. I/N. Can the merchants ever recover after facing the haggling maid? Chapter 28, Goddess. Hey, so, I'm not really sure how it happened. You and I've been the goddess of this world since, like, forever. At first I was, like, just poking around, you know, messing with stuff. And then these dopey natives just started calling me their goddess. Man, so dumb. But well, I can kinda get where they were coming from. I mean, look, I'm super kind, right? Like, so dependable. I just can't help but listen whenever someone prays to me. Totes a goddess, right? I mean, don't you feel like trying your best too when you see a cool guy in front of you? So anyway, being a goddess is actually a huge pain in the ass. Like, there's this fat whale who normally doesn't even do more than a few sloppy prayers, but then when typhoons or stuff like that happen he'd pester me to save them. God, so annoying. So I don't even bother. And then you know what? After the typhoon passed by itself, he'd go UAA and announce that I'd saved them. Like, is he an bozo or what? But like, I can't really do anything with offerings or food though. Why don't they get more cute guys to be priests instead? Like, come on. So yeah, I'm a goddess, right? I can actually get to other worlds too. It's super annoying though, having to set up all the audio and the timescale and the channel and stuff. But then one day, I found this weird thing in a weird world. People over there call it otome games or something. Oh yeah, I picked up my appearance and lingo from that world too. Totes adorbs, right? So like, that otome thingamajig, I got super duper hooked. Like, that heroine's so cute, so brave, and so diligent too. Isn't that totally me? I just get her, yak no? Anyway, so just watching got boring. I wanna play too, but this world doesn't have game consoles, so I couldn't. But I really wanted to play, so I got people here to develop summoning magic. Genius idea, yeah? Am I right or am I right? But then I realized something amazing. I can play. I can, like, just summon a human girl and control her just like in those games. See? Same thing. Man, I'm so smart. But there's one problem. See? In my world, there were no princes. Everyone was just banging rocks and sticks together. No shiny and big buildings like in that weird other world. I'm so cute. See? So this world totally didn't fit me. And then, get this, I got another amazing idea. If there wasn't a prince, then I just needed to make a kingdom. I can stick a good-looking priest and priestess together and make their kid a prince, then get a summoned heroine and that prince together to make a new kingdom. This country's gonna be so fire. So yeah, that was my plan, but I gotta be careful too. Not like that'd be a guarantee the heroine would act the way I want. I'm super humble. See, I know my limits. So I first wrote the script and got people from that weird world to make it into a game for me. It was a bit of a pain since I couldn't, like, really interfere much with a world that's not mine, but I tried so hard. It took me more than a decade to brainwash some rich-looking peep and got them to fund the game for me. It's called The Lines of Light, Darkness, and Love. Awesome name, right? So I got people to play the game and then summoned the girl who wanted to come here the most. And I finally managed to make her the queen. Controlling her with just blessings and oracles was, like, crazy tough. But real fun, too. It was so fun I got a few more games made, then turned the summoned heroines into saints and queens and stuff. They were all super duper happy. So going by this world's timescale, after about 1,000 years since the first game, civilization finally got to what people in that other weird world would call the Middle Ages. The heroine's children started inventing stuff to make things more convenient, but you know, autumn games set in another world have got to be in the Middle Ages, right? More atmospheric that way. So I decided those peeps who wanted to advance civilization should all get some divine punishment. Like, hello, got to keep the ambience here. So anyway, after the latest game got released, I summoned some people again, 16 this time. That's weird. Did an animal get dragged along too or something? Ah well, wait, I can't watch all of them anyway. This summoning's got more people than usual. So I decided that the main heroine this time would be a girl from my world, but it's not really working out. I'm not sure if she's just overly cautious or what, but she's such a sloth, even after I gave her oracles. Gosh, so annoying. On the other hand, the summoned heroines were so much better. I just gave them a bit of my protection and they went, like, chop chop chop. Afterward, I'd just need to give a nudge or two and the capturing would go fine. So fun. One of the heroines failed. Why? She had, like, charm and stuff. It should have been impossible. Where did things go wrong? There are 3 villainesses this time, so maybe it's them who are going off script. Unbelievable. Like, OMG. I've been trying to see how close to the games I can get with just indirect pokes and nudges, but maybe I've been playing around too much. Maybe I should give oracles to the remaining heroines too? It's looking kinda bad here. Whoops, the Saint girl's getting to work. Elias is supposed to be the secret character, but I guess I gotta bring him out now. The guy's, like, totally my type, you know? Super handsome. I've been showing him how awesome and cute I am since he was a little kid. So he's a really tough target. Hey. Something's really wrong here. Somebody is totally going off script in my country. To make this world like the games, I've enclosed this country and the neighboring ones in a barrier to allow people in the zone to have skills. I actually wanted to turn the whole world into my zone though, but it turned out to be way too big for me. Like, oh my gosh, I hate it. But inside my zone, it's just like the games. I've got maximum influence here. 2. My own sandbox to play in. This kingdom's gonna be the center of this world. Every creature affected by skills are more or less under my influence already. Like, heroines are just naturally more likable, and the villainesses tend to more easily be hated or have terrible personalities. Then why is the saint heroine being put on trial? Why is Elias on the prosecuting side? I didn't give Sharon any magical skills and made sure she was bullied so much too. Why is she still sane? Oh, the saint girl just asked for help. I have arrived at the location of the monster stampede, the 3rd dungeon, otherwise known as the Salt Dungeon. My first destination is the store I frequent. The shopkeeper finally has a customer and yet he's packing up for travel, looking rather agitated. Little maid. What is it, sir shopkeeper? Haven't you heard the news? There are monsters out there. I have, of course. Then why are you going shopping? Exclamation mark. How strange. Is this not a store? It is, but who the hell in their right mind would come here with what's going on? What are you saying, sir? At any rate, may I have some of the sugar and spices over there? Did you not listen to a single thing I said? Why are you still shopping? Monsters could be getting here at any moment. He's quite emotional, isn't he? Maybe he needs some more calcium and minerals. His thatching has degraded even further as well. Oh my. There are some other customers as well. Oh orc. Nice shot. I first thought it was a pig-faced customer. Turned out it was just a customer-faced pig. I wipe off the blood on my beloved Orc Killer X and turn back to the shopkeeper to see him holding his crotch with both hands, his face green and his back bent. Poor him. This must be the first time he has seen such a violently piggish customer. Sir shopkeeper, how much would you pay for a freshly hunted orc? It's still warm. Are you really saying that, maid girl? Aren't there more important things right now? I suppose he's right. Well, it's true that its S have unfortunately been crushed. A pity. Those could have been used in energy tonics. Then just the price for its skin and meat would be fine. Sir, please feel free to subtract the butchering fee from the sum total. I told you, this is not the time to be talking business. Also, the sack of wheat at the storefront seems to have been a little bit trampled by the orc, hasn't it? Please give me a discount for that. Girl, I am trying to evacuate here. Ah, I see. I did not realize I was interrupting him when he was hurrying. Regrettably, I am not a very bright maid in that respect. As an apology, I begin to brew some tea for him and serve some dried seaweed as accompaniment. I then return to the negotiation. We are interrupted a few times by monsters, which are then swiftly dispatched by my spiked club. The shopkeeper just takes in the sight, his eyes unfocused as though his mind has regressed to infancy, and he sits back down on the chair, his packed luggage left to the side. He has changed his mind, it seems. Also, can you throw in some of that maple syrup and rock candies over there as well? Just take whatever you want already, damn it. In return, here, I take out another pouch of dried seaweed and place it on the table. The shopkeeper takes a look inside, then surreptitiously tuck it away. Even as close to the dungeon as I am, I find it rather telling that monsters have already spilled to the streets. The situation seems to be quite dire. Normally, the soldiers would be around to protect the citizens at the moment, but I do not see any of them. They're probably at the third dungeon at the moment to hold the monsters at bay. Quite a dilemma for them. This must be. All the soldiers have to be at the dungeon to stop the city from being drowned in monsters, which also means that what few monsters that manage to get through would be able to wreck the streets with impunity. I elect to head for the third dungeon for the time being, crushing any monsters that I encounter along the way. After some time, I notice a few small shadows approaching me. Hello, miss. Hello, little ones. I see that you've gotten yourself something quite nice. They're the snot-nosed urchins that I see running around town all the time. In their hands are bloodied kitchen knives and cleavers, while their arms are wrapped protectively around the body parts of monsters that the guild would purchase as proof of subjugation. How is the battle going? The local knight leader is heavily wounded and has retreated. Currently, the vice leader is taking command. The third knight squadron can barely keep itself together. The second prince's imperial knights are keeping the monsters at bay, but they probably wouldn't last another few hours. The capital's knights would take a while to get here. Anything else suspicious? Nothing, really. The foreign spies aren't doing anything. I see. Thank you. Here are your rewards. I give them the rock candies as I always do, and the children burst into cheers. Thank you, miss. Goodness, the smiles of innocent children truly is a balm for the soul. So, there's nobody doing anything suspicious, which means that the intent that I felt is behind this incident is probably the world's administrator. How troublesome. I suppose I'm going to need to be a little more careful now. I/N. The goddess is. Well, you know the type. Chapter 29, Frontline. The Monster Stampede, a milestone event in the game, would occur once the capture target's likability to the Saint Heroine reached maximum. The event's difficulty would vary with the Saint Heroine's G skill. The higher the skill, the more difficult it was, and the closer the stampede would happen to Argyre's capital. In lower difficulties, all of the country's knightly order would also be there as reinforcement as well. However, if the stampede happened at dungeons close to the capital, the first dungeon to the fourth, there would be barely any support from the country. The saint heroine would be forced to fight at the front lines together with her capture target. The event this time occurred at the third dungeon, the second highest difficulty. This dungeon was at the center of the capital as well as being closest to the academy. Subsequently, the saint heroine would receive the help of the academy instructors and the second prince's imperial knights, though she would be required to take command of the priests of the capital's church to fight at the front lines. Come, my lady saint, with your power, we shall show this world the goddess light. The supposed commander had been dragged to the battlefield by the church's priests. This stampede wasn't supposed to have happened. Chiri hadn't even raised her likability much with the grown-ups that were the targets of the saint heroine: Elias the Holy Knight, Andy the Imperial Knight, Eric the Academy Instructor, and her own G skill was still just level 2 when the maximum was 10. Not only that, there was the scandal that was the priest's assault on a Marquis young lady, who was also a student of the academy. The church needed to show that their members and the next saint were capable of putting an end to this stampede, no matter what it takes. Even as the dispatched priests venerated Chiri as the next saint, anyone could see that they had no intentions of letting her out of their sight until the incident was over. Chiri even overheard their mutters. We almost had a fiasco on our hand. Thank the goddess for giving us this chance to recover our dignity, they said, without a hint of consideration. It sent a lance of pain through Chiri's heart. Why did this happen? I did pray for the goddess to do something, but I can't deal with this, she screamed in her mind. A few moments later, her thoughts switched tracks. She did think it would have been impossible to escape from that trial without something suitably drastic. She would even go so far as to say that nothing less than a natural disaster would do, even. At the same time, she also knew that she did not have the power to end this event by herself. Then there must be another way, a safer way. A way to make this crisis even worse. Chiri's mind whirred, and a plan began to form. She had failed once because she had mistakenly thought that the people of this world would act like characters in her game. Now that the plot had left the rails, she was finally making use of her true talent, one that she had refined through years of maneuvering people to her purpose. You, over there. Yes, my lady saint. What do you require of me? She searched the church's force for an easy mark. She found a young and naive-looking priest and called at him, smiling and presenting herself as best as possible. She knew how effective her own looks were. After all, I have just received another oracle from the goddess. Knock knock knock. A wordle. A hulking mass collapsed to the ground. The earth shuddered. That was an ogre I have encountered in the streets and have finished off with a triple bogey. Strangely enough, I thought I saw a flash of euphoria on its face during its final moments. Greetings, everyone. This is Fulrity, the maid who would be very happy if she could share her joy with others. Right, where should I go? I've been heading toward the Salt Dungeon, but I've been wondering if I should go save Andy and Joel like I promised my lady, or if I should deal with the dungeon itself. This is quite the dilemma. I suppose I should prioritize my promise, then. If I solve the problem here and yet let Andy be injured, I would be most ashamed to face my lady. Nothing is more important than her words. Not even the city's survival. In fact, Grug. Another stray monster. This one is called Hob something. While it's true that I've also been getting closer to the dungeon, the fact that I've been meeting monsters so frequently really does show how bad things have gotten. A sudden, metallic clang sounds out. The Hob something gurgles and drops to the ground in 2 pieces. As I see the figure of a knight through the spray of blood, I clasp my hand in front of my waist and give a gentle bow. Thank you for your assistance, Sir Elias. Oh no, I'm sure you didn't need it. The man who has just gallantly, heroically arrived is Elias, the holy knight of the church. At the moment, he is thoroughly wiping off the blood on his sword with a piece of cloth and with a smooth motion, returning it to its sheath. It makes him look like such a playboy from a well-to-do family. Were you thinking something unflattering? Not at all. I was simply admiring the sight of a knight protecting a helpless maid. I find it difficult to think of you as helpless, Miss Ferretti. He has surprisingly sharp intuition. Speaking of which, how goes the battle? I have heard that our forces are being pushed back by quite a bit, despite His Highness Joel's participation. I say, my subordinate knight priests have arrived to reinforce. I believe the lines will be re-established. That aside, I'm surprised you found out so quickly. The walls have ears, after all. I have also encountered quite a few monsters on my way here. If I may speak my mind, sir, I believe there is a rather large leak somewhere. What? Yes, Sir. Elias looks at me as though he can't believe what he's hearing. Unfortunately, he should know that that gaze only excites me when it's my lady doing the looking. Miss Flaherty, I would much prefer you to be using another weapon. The club you hold in your hand is cursed, is it not? If I'm right, the curse creates an attraction to certain types of monsters, that is to say, the types that have more powerful breeding instincts. Ah, I see. I have completely forgotten about that little detail. I have used my Orc Killer X for far too many nice shots to orcs, creatures that think with their lower heads, and this has strengthened the curse on the weapon. Before, it used to cause uncontrollable rage on orcs only, but now the target has been expanded to all humanoid monsters of a similar nature. My apologies. I have not thought it to be a problem. I understand my gift might have been an inferior weapon. Still, as he had promised, the other day Elias had sent me a one-handed club made of mithril. I still continued to favor the spiked club. However, Elias has said that it is inferior, but that one-handed club was a very wonderful thing indeed. It sold for a whole 30 gold coins in the black market. After all, considering that I bought this spiked club for the cut price of 1 silver coin, that mithril club was on an entirely another level of quality. Yes, quality. I certainly did not mean to say value. At any rate, this means I would have to change my plans. I see that I should not be getting close to His Highness Jill with this orc killer in hand. Well then, please excuse me. As I begin to step away, Elias calls at me. Wait up. Please. I might be able to pull away the monsters that are attacking Andy if I join up with him, but I would also be attracting more monsters from far away. It would just defeat the purpose. It is why I have decided to switch to my plan B, dealing with the dungeon as fast as possible to remove the source of monsters itself, and I would have been on my way if not for Elias. I wonder what he has in mind. Elias kneels in front of me as he once did when we first met. Virtuous maiden, thou who would face death itself to save the common people. May I be allowed the honor of being your protector? He says, swearing an oath with absolute sincerity. Well, he's free to follow along. If he can, that is. The two of us head for the dungeon depths. Not to the very end, though. According to Elias, there are cases where the tunnels that the dungeon created to bring in monsters from the outside would connect to its upper floors, or in other words, floors closer to the dungeon entrance. The monster stampede happens whenever one end of a dungeon-created tunnel coincidentally opens up to a region full of monsters, and the other end coincidentally opens up on one of the upper floors. It's all coincidences. I'm a bit disappointed, to be honest. I'm in another world here. Are there no demon kings or dark lords? I sprint for the dungeon, fully intending to leave Elias behind. Surprisingly, he doesn't seem to have much trouble following my speed. This cannot do. An expert maid should always be able to stay in front of the gentleman. At this rate, I'm going to be punished by the maid chief. That scream. It sounds like the glass-shattering shriek of an overgrown maiden. Sir, overgrown? Wait, no, is this the time for such nonchalance? My very much reasonable assessment leads us to the source of the voice. We arrive at the scene soon after. This must be a human-eating parasitic plant. Would it count as lewd tentacles, I wonder? I say. Elias doesn't reply. Stop fooling around and save me already. The victim shouts. The woman currently being assaulted by a number of strange, slimy tentacles is the one who had been the quickest to run from that trial. Lady Camilla. I was sure she had run to her home, the dukedom house, but it seems she really was trying to deal with the incident. Well, her life as a noble would be over if she ran anyway, so as proud as she is, there wasn't much of a chance she would do so. I never thought she was actually frolicking with tentacles here, though. You really do have that sort of hobby, don't you? I'm not doing this because I like it. Save me already. I suppose we should. Just as well that the source of the monsters also seems to be here. Lady Camilla must have made the discovery. I wonder if those suspicious oracles had anything to do with it. On the ground nearby are Camilla's own private soldiers, who seem to have fallen in their attempt to deal with the source. It doesn't take much time for me to clear out the monsters and destroy the source. Now there is only Camilla, half naked and being toyed with by lewd tentacles. Other than it being a somewhat indecent sight, there doesn't seem to be any other problem. She is freed in short order, though, as Elias is too much of a proper gentleman to leave her trapped for any longer. Of course, I made sure to procure a few photographs of Lady Camilla's lewdness for future uses. Now that things are over and done with, I can't help but feel that it was too easy, assuming that the tunnel's entrance was already close to disappearing by the time I dealt with it. Then if only Camilla had been able to hold on for a bit longer, then she really would have been considered the person to have resolved the incident. Miss Ferretti, what is on your mind? It is nothing, Sir Elias. Now there is only the matter of dealing with the monsters that have escaped the dungeon. We should leave. Let us. Wait, hold on a second. Elias takes out something that looks like the shell of a bivalve mollusk and places it to his ear. If I'm not mistaken, the bivalve shell thing acts as one part of a pair of magical tools which allow one to communicate at long distance, and they're called portable Magitech communicators. My lady and I wanted them too, but just a pair already cost 200 gold pieces. Too much for us. What? Monsters have spilled into the town? Lady Chiri is taking command? What's going on outside? Apparently the monster stampede is not over yet. I wonder if Chiri had done something again. But more importantly, I worry for my lady's safety. Please wait for me. My lady, your maid will be with you before long. Chapter 30. City at War. Monsters are in the streets, Jill shouted at the knight delivering the report. The prince received a tense nod in return. During the early hours of the third dungeon stampede, the defense was manned by the second prince's imperial knights. The crisis had been almost out of their control, but with the arrival of the holy knight's subordinate knight priests, the horde was slowly being pushed back. More importantly, if the Holy Knight himself hadn't infiltrated the dungeon with a small squad of elites and destroyed the source of monsters as fast as he had, then perhaps the line of defense would have fallen apart before the never-ending tide of monsters. By now, the crisis wouldn't have been as bad as it was if the church's forces and the prospective saints had been there, as according to the original plan. Had the knight priests not come to reinforce the lines in their place, everything might have been lost. Yet the situation had veered in an unexpected direction. Some amount of monsters were suspected to have leaked into the city due to the imperial knights, the knight priests, the local knights, and the soldiers being unable to hold them back completely. But as it turned out, a group of monsters had been able to escape to the city through a part of the defensive walls which had, for some reason, been destroyed. How is the city? What about the citizens? Sir, the monsters have reached the center of the capital's eastern district, but fortunately, the church's forces led by the next saint were there to stop them, as they had departed late. The next saint is currently taking command and is clearing out the monsters. I see. Joel sighed a sigh of relief. Thank the goddess for small mercies. According to the report, the group of monsters numbered around 50, enough to overwhelm the patrolling soldiers and bring harm to the civilians. Though the people's safety was certainly one of his concerns, he was far more worried about the nearby Magic Academy. Joel might be royalty, but he was still only a 15-year-old boy. He was naturally more inclined to think of his friends and adoring juniors than strangers. The Imperial Knight Andy standing behind him sighed in relief as well. Unfortunately, their respite didn't last long. Your Highness, emergency. The church's soldiers have been routed and have retreated into the academy. What? Andy found himself shouting. The prince was dumbstruck. The academy was where Andy's younger brother, as well as a girl who he had thought of as a little sister since his childhood, were. Yet he couldn't come to save them. The knights already had their hands full pushing back the monsters, and the second prince, his charge, was also taking command here. Andy was the prince's bodyguard. His duty came first and foremost. Andy, take several of the knights and get to the academy, immediately. Yes, sir. Wait, your highness. I cannot leave your side. There are magicians and professors at the academy, scions of nobility. They should be keeping the monsters at bay at the moment. Go help them, Andy. Protect the people. But Tammy is there too. My little sister. Make sure she is safe, her, and my fiancé candidates too. The prince spoke, not as royalty but simply as a young man worried for his family. Andy understood what the prince had left unsaid. He gave quiet bow. Understood, your highness. There was surprisingly little damage to the city. The reason however, wasn't because the church's soldiers had been putting up a good fight, but rather that Chiri, the next saint, had escaped into the academy after finding out there were more monsters than she expected, and most of them had followed her. A scream echoed in the hallways. It came from a student, a girl from one of the junior grades who had made her escape far too late. tripping in her panicked hurry. Several hobgoblins gather around her. The Magic Academy wasn't just an educational facility. Similar to Earth's universities, it also served as a research facility, which was why its campus took up a rather large area of land. Being both a research facility and a school for children of nobility, it was well protected. There were magical barriers over the entrances and the walls, as well as a sizable number of guards. Unfortunately, the barrier had been deactivated when Chiri ran inside, allowing the pack of monsters to enter the academy. Believing in the safety of the barrier, the soldiers were scattered throughout the sprawling campus. The professors were busy evacuating the students. No one was available to deal with the monsters. Ice Spike. Just as the hobgoblins were about to set upon the girl, spears of ice turned them into pincushions. With the monsters screaming in their death throes, the spellcaster, a silver-haired girl, ran toward her underclassmen on the ground. "Are you hurt?" she said, shaking the other girl out of her stupor. No, I'm fine." As the silver-haired girl helped her junior up, the younger girl's cheeks blushed red, her eyes bouncing vertically as they followed the motions of the bountiful bosom in front of her. Thank you. You saved me," the younger girl stammered out. "As a noble and a senior of the academy, I could do nothing else." The silver-haired girl turned around. "Help her to safety, everyone." "Yes, Mom." Replying to her was a group of several girls. One of them began to lead the underclassmen away. "We should get going. Some people might still have not evacuated yet." "Yes, Lady Sharon." While the majority of the noble students were out to save themselves first, some of the senior students had decided to fight the monsters to protect their juniors. As a noble, Sharon had chosen to fight as well, and seeing her initiative, many of the commoner students had also volunteered to assist her. Sharon. Cal, her childhood friend who had been helping out somewhere else, ran up to her. Accompanying him were two of the partner candidates in their class. "And how?" "You're bleeding," Sharon gasped. "Ah, right, there were monsters over there too." "Don't worry, Miss Sharon. It's just the monster's blood." "Yeah." As the boys said, they were mostly unharmed. Nevertheless, while Cal, son to the Mercia Marquis family that had had a long tradition of producing knights, was still keeping his composure, the same could not be said for the two boys summoned from Earth, whose faces were pallid and clammy with sweat. That wasn't to say they lacked bravery. After all, when most of the male students were making their escape, the two boys had decided to search for the students who had been left behind, even when they knew there were monsters wandering the campus. It did not mean their nerves were calm. However, Hao was gripping his bloodied sword so tight his fingers turned white. Noticing the trickle of blood coming from his hand, Sharon hurriedly ran up to him. "You're holding it too tight," she said, holding his hands in hers and readying her magic heal. Thank you," Hao stammered with a blush that extended to his ears. Cal watched the scene with a faint frown. After finishing her treatment, Sharon, oblivious to his thoughts, turned toward Cal and spoke. "Cal, are there any other students?" "No, not on my side." "Speaking of which, you've gotten much better at your magic, haven't you?" "Yes, all thanks to Letty." Sharon smiled the smile of a flower in bloom, easy and light, showing none of the tension she used to wrap herself in. Carl found himself unable to look at her in the eyes, his cheeks burning. "Ah, right, I see. That reminds me, where has your maid gone?" "Is this not exactly the time when she should be protecting you?" "I've asked Letty to go help His Highness." "I see." Carl snorted. If Prince Joel was there, then that meant his brother was there, too. "Goodness, you're still here?" "Instructor." The group turned to the new voice. It was Instructor Eric Marsar, their homeroom teacher. His clothes were somewhat ruffled with signs of combat. He seemed to have been acting alone, being able enough to not require a helper. "Were you helping to evacuate the other students?" "I'm here now." "You'd better get to safety immediately." "No, Instructor, I am a noble, and my duty is to protect the common people," Sharon said. "That's right. I'm staying too. You know we can handle ourselves." Carl followed. Eric took a look at the group and faintly sighed. Understood, but the young misses over there should be evacuating now. Mr. Hao, keep them safe." And Hao awkwardly nodded. Now that they knew they would be escorted by two handsome boys from another world, the helping girls readily agreed to leave, their eyes gleaming. "Instructor, where should we search next?" Sharon asked. "We've already checked out the dorm and the locker rooms," added Carl. "Let's see." Eric thought for a moment and spoke. "Right, Then that should leave only the dining hall. Both Sharon and Carl were nobles who had no use for the dining hall, and they had entirely forgotten about it. For a moment, their eyes met each other in realization. It made sense. Some of the commoner students that had been left behind were likely to be there, and since the place had food, there was a possibility that monsters were there as well. Let's go. What has happened? What's with these guys? When they arrived at the dining hall, Sharon didn't see any students. Instead, there were armed men garbed in priestly attire lying on the ground. They. Sharon stammered. I gotta treat them. Hold up, Miss Sharon. There should still be people up ahead. We must go, urged Eric. But hurry, Sharon, Carl said forcefully, pulling the bewildered girl along with hurried steps. The two men had already realized that these people didn't need healing. Not anymore. A scream. Somebody's still there. We have to hurry. Right. The three ran toward the voice that came from deeper in. There, they found that it had been Chari's. The girl was being protected by soldiers from the church, all of them injured and exhausted. They were being surrounded and attacked by dozens of monsters. Lady Chari? Sharon gasped. Carl clicked his tongue. Shit, that's nearly all the monsters. The two of you, focus on support. No area spells. Eric shouted. Yes. Got it. Lightning. Eric's spell shocked and stunned several of the monsters. Not a moment later, Carl was already there swinging his sword, his strength boosted by magic, while Sharon's spears of ice pierced through the monsters. They cleared a path. The three didn't think they could deal with the whole pack either. It was a gamble, an attempt to save Chari's group through a surprise ambush. Eric had resolved to save, if not all of them, then at least the students. Save me, Lady Chari. With the way open, everyone thought Chari would be making her escape immediately, but she didn't. Instead, the girl scrambled toward Sharon and clung to her legs. It's not my fault. I never thought there'd be so many monsters. What? Lady Chari? Don't tell me. Carl and Eric frowned. Unfortunately, this was no time for any questioning. Grah. After recovering from its momentary daze, an ogre slammed its club down toward Sharon. But she could not move. Chari was still hanging to her legs. Believing that it was too late for her, Sharon shut her eyes tight. It was then that she heard a familiar voice. Sharon. The very next moment, the ogre's lower half disintegrated. Before its torso could even drop to the ground, its face still frozen in an expression of incomprehension, a sword sliced it apart. A figure dashed toward the young lady. Sharon. Sir Andy? She was then immediately held in a tight embrace by the newly arrived knight. Her cheeks flushed, her eyes darting about wildly. Carl looked on with a grimace, while Chari was stunned. Andy had arrived. However, they weren't out of the woods yet. Gwog. And then, of the monsters that had been trying to approach Sharon and Andy, the foremost few abruptly lost their lower body parts in much the same way as the previous ogre. Andy was holding Sharon. Neither Eric nor Carl had swung their weapons. My Lady Sharon. My apologies for the wait. Letty. My Lady shouts from within Andy's arms. I smile and give her an impeccable curtsy. I have arrived in time. Fortunately, even after picking up Andy on the way. If circumstances allowed, then I would have liked to give my lady a hug and give her pats all over the places after Mr. Imperial Knight is done with his turn. Unfortunately, there are quite a few boorish characters here. I shall have to be prudent. That's right. As you may have realized, I have finally added the word prudence to my dictionary. My lady has been most thorough when explaining it to me. As long as I possessed prudence, I could even drink dry whole ocean. Maybe 3. Letty, I just know you're having another misunderstanding. Not at all. I was simply reflecting on how wonderful you are, my lady. In hindsight, perhaps I might have been somewhat overly agitated by the thought of my lady being in danger, as I have inadvertently unleashed my nice shots at full power and vaporized the monsters. Just look at Carl. He is bending over like a shrimp again. Not only that, my spiked club has also come so close to Chari's head that her forebangs have been shaved off. Her eyes have rolled back in their sockets, her mouth is frothing, and she has lost consciousness. All rather unimportant matters, really. I give my spiked club a light flick to clean off the blood and send a wave of carefully directed intimidation to the monsters. Their faces spasm, and they take a step back. Right, let's see. What should I do? Speaking as a very ordinary maid, crushing orc would be the most elegant response that a lady could do. But then again, if I do that to all the monsters here, my lady might get dirtied from the blood splatters. Doing it gently would be preferable, it seems. As I step forward, ready to make my round, I am interrupted by another newcomer. Sanctified domain. Gra? Exclamation mark. With a voice that comes out of nowhere, a powerful field of holy align magic appears, dealing damage to both the monsters and me. Finish them off. A man's voice rings out. A chorus of acknowledgements come from a group of Imperial Knights wearing armor like Handies, and they begin to cut down the now helpless monsters. I wonder who these people are. I also wonder just who it was that had created the magical field. That hurt about as painful as someone shooting a rubber band at me. In fact, it doesn't take long for the monsters to be cleaned up. The knights then split into two rows, making way for a girl being escorted by a young man. Your Highness Yuri. Andy shouts. If I remember correctly, that's Yuri de von Agri, the crown prince of this kingdom. And next to him is Lady Clarice, Lady Sharon, Miss Ferretti. Are you hurt? Clarice Delaniello, the young lady of a Viscount family who had once invited my lady to a tea party, has on her face an immaculate smile. Chapter 31. Conclusion. That's the worst of it over now, Prince Yuri says as his glare sweeps the room now full of monster corpses, all of them having been exterminated by the knights. Yuri de von Agri, the eldest prince of Agri Kingdom and the first in line to inherit the crown, according to what the kids have told me. Prince Yuri is still young, only 19, but unlike his younger brother Joel who has inherited the queen's svelte figure, Yuri is a broad-shouldered, well-built man, nearly 190 centimeters tall and naturally imposing. His countenance is handsomely masculine, but he is also known for his roughness, unflinching audacity, and at times even cruelty. His gaze alone could intimidate many. From a certain point of view, he is very much a model king to be. This country was first established through the conquering of dungeons, and its noble caste was made of powerful people. Yuri would be the right choice to have as the king of such a nation. Other than Chiri who has fainted, everyone here has all that knelt to his presence. Enough. This is not the palace, and there is no need to kneel. Raise your head. He's not exactly smiling, but from the tone of his voice, he doesn't seem to be in a bad mood. Why, Your Highness? Cal says, sounding quite emotional. He's blushing, too. Is this love? Oh, right. I see. Carl's usual bravado is a result of his infatuation with Prince Yuri, as he's decided to mimic the prince. Doesn't he realize how inferior he looks to the real thing? PFFT, the Mercia scion and the younger brother. You've done good work. Prince Yuri coolly nods to Andy and Carl. He walks forward, sparing not even a glance for Instructor Eric Marsar and Miss Chiri, currently unconscious with eyes rolled back in their sockets, as well as leaking a little bit below. And he stops in front of my Lady Sharon, who is still kneeling with her head low, and me, her maid. Raise your heads, you two. Why yes, Your Highness, my lady replies, her voice quavering as though in deference. But I know it's not deference, it's just her being so much of a shy loner that she automatically panics in front of a large-sized man. Prince Yuri hums, his piercing gaze fixed on my lady's face. Then he snorts. Sure enough, one can't really take the rumors of noble ladies seriously. People say the Michelle young lady is a fool that cowers behind her status and a dullard that was abandoned by her own family, but I have heard the reports. The evacuees have spoken of your courage. I am unworthy of your praises, Your Highness. Of course she's amazing. My lady can do anything once she puts her mind to it. Your name is Sharon, is it not? Stand up. Yes, Your Highness. My lady releases her death grip on my skirt and stands up, looking like a terribly adorable little fawn. I see. You don't look half bad. Prince Yuri places his fingers below my lady's jaws and raises her head. My lady gasps. I can feel Andy and Carl doing the same as well. Not bad, he says. Not bad? He would tarnish the visage of the cutest girl in the world with his touch and say she's not bad. You Sharon's maid? I am, Your Highness. Oh. What a gaffe. It seems I have inadvertently lost control of my anger for a moment, and the prince has picked up on it. This cannot do. That horror I mean, the maid chief could have turned a whole country into a wasteland without blinking an eye. As a maid, I am still lacking in discipline. Name yourself. I am Ferretti, Your Highness. I see, you've got spirit. It was only for a moment, but I have seen you killing monsters with a single blow before our forces got here. Nothing that would deserve your attention, Your Highness. Enough with that. You're good. I like capable people, and you're good looking as well. If you wish, Then I shall allow you to be my servant." "Huh?" The surprised exclamation hasn't come from me, but my lady. She nervously looks at me. I respond to her with a smile and turn back to the prince. I stand up, my fingers pinching my skirt, and I give him a graceful curtsy the way noble women do. "I am a maid, and I serve my lady Sharon." "Her and her only," I say, which is really just a more polite way of saying to the prince, "so I would really appreciate it if you could cut the bullshit, please." I hear some gasps. This time, they came from Prince Yuri's knights. The prince probably hasn't ever had anyone refuse him before. Before his presence, nobody had dared to, afraid that they would incur his wrath. And then for a single moment, a wave of what feels like sheer presence blasts from Prince Yuri. It made everyone in the room flinch. Except me, of course, as I continue to smile at him. It was just a breeze, really. Prince Yuri curls his lips upward. I see. Can't force you to, can I? In that case, ape. The prince suddenly pulls at my lady's slender hips. "I just need to get you, Sharon, and both of you would be mine." "Your Highness!" Andy shouts, apparently without meaning to. "Imperial Knight Andy, I have not given you permission to speak." Andy swallows his words. My lady is frozen stiff. The pair of brothers are hesitating, unable to act. It is then that a helping hand comes from someone unexpected. "Your Highness, please refrain. I believe your retainers would be inconvenienced by such a sudden decision." Clarice, the prince mutters. Clarice might have contributed to the monster subjugation effort, but she is still only the daughter of a viscount. Yet now, that viscount young lady has spoken out against the crown prince himself, while everyone else is waiting with bated breath to see what would happen. Like me, on Clarice's face is still the relaxed smile that she has held since the beginning. The prince looks at her, and his expression softens. "If Lady Clarice says so, then I will not insist. So put that menacing thing away, maid." "As you wish, Your Highness." Following Prince Yuri's order, I return the spiked club to its place inside my skirt while taking back my lady from his hands at the same time. The knights all release a sigh of relief. "Are you hurt, my lady?" I'm fine. "Thanks, Letty." She smiles, looking somewhat embarrassed, and she gives Clarice a nod with her eyes as well. She couldn't be any more direct here, otherwise it would be equivalent to a public declaration that she disagreed with Prince Yuri. "We'll send Clarice a letter of gratitude later, after this is over. Let's return." A few of the knights need to stay to clean up the mess. "Clarice, you're with me," Prince Yuri says and starts walking. "Understood." "Lady Sharon, Miss Ferretti, I hope we can meet for tea again sometime," Clarice responds, following the prince back to the palace. "I do have to wonder who the viscount young lady is. She can create a field of holy magic powerful enough to hurt me, and she looks to be more than a simple acquaintance with Prince Yuri as well. There's something about her." "Sharon, are you fine?" "Yes." Carl makes conversation with my lady, though I can feel him being strangely distant to Andy. Prince Yuri's earlier words must still be in his mind. "Well, at any rate, my lady, let us return to your room to clean up in the bath. I worry that your bosom might have diminished after being subjected to such a brutish touch." "How would that happen?" The pair of brothers turn away with their faces red, while I celebrate being hit with my lady's slipper after so long. Thus, the monster stampede concluded. Camilla, daughter of a duke and an academy instructor, was originally supposed to be stripped of her family name and be sent to a convent as her punishment. Her initiative in being the first to attempt to enter the dungeon and remove the source of the stampede, reckless and without authorization as it might have been, was still taken into consideration, and her sentence was reduced. She would not be sent to a convent. Instead, she would be removed from her post at the academy and be sent for marriage to some lecherous old man with ties to her dukedom. I personally thought the sentence was rather lacking, so I had also supplied the aforementioned lecher with lewd photographs of her being attacked by tentacles in the dungeon. He had been most jubilant. He had also purchased much of my specialty product, my super powerful energy supplements that would allow him to go a whole 3 days without drinking, eating, or sleeping. We're loaded with money now. Similarly, Mia, the Marquis-employed maid and a co-conspirator of the assault in the dungeon, also barely managed to escape being sent to a convent. The Marquis' house had paid her bail money, and she would be demoted to being one of the scullery maids. It would be decades before her debt could be cleared, I should think. As for Miss Chiri, She had avoided being sent to jail by virtue of being one of the partner candidates that the country had summoned. However, with her role in the assault and being the culprit who had lured monsters into the city, she was no longer considered for the position of the next saint, and she would have to do community service until her graduation. The nobles were informed of this, so her chances of ever becoming a noble's partner is practically non-existent now. Also, apparently Chiri would be put under the supervision of an etiquette coach for a while. But then she locked herself up in her room and hadn't come out since. It must have been because I had blown off her front bangs. Hey Letty. What should we do now? A month of free time, is it? Perhaps we should travel somewhere. I answer my lady as I pour her a cup of sweet chai tea. She starts nibbling on pieces of soan papdi, a dessert I've prepared as accompaniment since it goes well with the tea. Due to the monster attack, the academy had suffered infrastructural damage, and there are junior students who have been traumatized as well, even if their physical wounds have already been healed with G. The academy would close for about a month. Most of the students have gone home, but my lady's family situation is still far from being a pleasant stay. As we now have quite a bit of free time, we could invite Lady Clarice over for tea and to show our gratitude as well. But the young lady was recently announced to be the next saint to replace Chiri. She is apparently quite busy with trips to the church and to the palace. It's hard to get a chance to meet with her. Oh, yes, I just have a good idea, my lady says, clapping her hands adorably and smiling at me. I wonder what disaster this idea of hers would lead to this time. What is it, my lady? Ever since you came to this world you've been with me all the time, right? So let's go on a tour around the kingdom. Indeed. I've only ever gone to the Dark Woods and her family home. And besides, yes, I've always wanted to go on a trip with friends. Her voice shrinks into an embarrassed mumble as she fiddles her fingers and looks at me with puppy eyes. My lady, too cute. Understood. I shall cross the whole world in 1 month with my lady in my arms. That's not a trip. I/N. The next few chapters will be the touring arc. Mostly just slice of life stuff. T/N. So now that huge batch is done and we've gotten to a good spot, I have an announcement to make. I'm dropping this series. When I first read Haruno Hi's stuff I felt like I should share them with English-speaking readers. But that was a long time ago. Probably nearly 2 years now, and now I just don't feel that passion anymore. I may or may not return to this in the future if the mood strikes, but best not to hope on it. If anyone wants to pick this up, feel free. Chapter 32. Journey. Hey, girls, this road is closed to traffic. If you want to get through, take out your wallets. If not, I'm going to rip off all your clothes and sell you both. Oh, my gosh, I like these women. The sun is shining today, a nice day for a leisurely trip along the mountain road in a carriage. This is Fulrity, a maid who can also drive a carriage. My lady and I are traveling through the recreational area of the Kingdom of El Grey. We've been to some of the famous tourist spots so far, but those places aren't much different from places on Earth. I stayed at a pension, ate the local specialties while enjoying the natural scenery, listened to the story of the owner of the pension and learned a new pattern of the embroidery from his wife. If I dare to make a difference from Earth. The owner was a sage of time who hid in a dungeon. The food was a fishy unicorn stallion that flowed from the stomach after 2 bites. And the stench of death wafted through the air because the embroidery patterns were made of strange demonic threads. So my lady and I decided to go to a town in the mountains, which was said to have some unusual specialties and old lore. Although it's called a town, it looks like a large village, but there aren't many tourists and it's a quiet place. Since it was a nice day, my lady sat next to me as I was playing the role of a coachman, and we started our journey in Kashauf. A horse pulling a carriage. Na is in a very good mood, too. You're looking forward to it, my lady. You're ignoring us. Oops, my apologies. When you are thinking of traveling with my lady, all other things are not important. Letty. My lady fingers grab my sleeve like a frightened little girl. It can't be helped, since the only adult men who are not frightened to my lady are her father and Sir Andy. Well, the 3 men who appeared as if they were blocking the carriage, with their words and the fact that they appeared on the mountain path in their strange attire, must be bandits. Don't you think? It's not good for my lady's education to have a good old man wandering around in the middle of the day like this. It's a beautiful day, so why don't you go out and work in the field and My lady, I think we need to reapply some sunscreen. That's what's bothering you in this situation? It can't be helped. So what can I do for you? I just told you. The first man shouted as if he could feel the exasperation in my voice at his question. Are you not getting enough calcium and minerals? These three bandits were all young men in their early to late 20s. The first one is what you might call an older brother. He was in his late 20s, well-muscled, wearing a fur vest over his bare skin. Probably. He has a personality that starts with his form. The second one is in his mid-20s and seems to have a thin, graceful appearance. His look is better. But I am used to seeing big-belly tuna like Joel and Delias, so I feel like I am being served frozen tuna's yolk after special sushi. The third person who looks a little overweight and lacking in nappy. You're probably in charge of the punchline. Oh, my god, I want these women. You're going to break a girl's heart, aren't you? But they look nice. Some young lady going on a trip without a bodyguard. We're gonna get a lot of ransom. Well, brother, let's be nice to the ladies. I'll be gentle and loving. Nice shot. For now, I made a 3-shot par and roped them to the back of the carriage. Letty. That's too much. That's very kind of you, my lady. The impact, lower body, is so strong that it's unlikely they'll be able to walk on their own. But I don't think the worthy no would feel terrible about dragging them around like this. That's not what I meant. Nay. See, Na says it's light too. We'll have to reward him with live food later. Oops, Na, you mustn't bite the human since my lady is watching you. Na used to be an ordinary horse. After eating demon meat and increasing his legs to 8, he started to look like a demon. Bandits. You, 2 young girls, are well and safe. There were only 3 of them, and they may have been careless because we are women. Besides, if they are that bad, even my lady from the Academy of Magic could repel them all by herself. Ho ho, you're a student of the Academy of Magic? That's great. When my lady and I arrived at the mountain town of San March, my lady and I immediately took the bandit to the guards of the gate. False arrest is a problem in this kind of thing. But since they look like bandits, they were accepted normally by the captain of the soldier station. They will be interrogated at a later date, and if the charges are confirmed, we will receive a small reward. But magic? It looks like you've done a lot of damage, so it's going to take a while. I'm sorry about that. I bow my head honestly to the captain for the unnecessary trouble I have caused him. But there's no problem. They still can live a second life, not as men. I'm glad you ladies aren't hurt. Oh, thank you. You are a traveler, aren't you? So, have you decided where you're going to stay here? Letty, do you know where we're going? I'm sorry. I was wondering if I could talk to a trustworthy and kind person there about a nice place. Captain, do you have any recommendations? Well, the captain, who I reckoned to be reliable, introduced me to an inn he knew. He said he could give me a discount if I mentioned his name. I heard about it. It was hard work. It is free, so please eat a lot. Okay. Thank you. Landlady, thank you for your help. This inn was introduced to us by the captain, and although it was not a nobleman's classy inn, it was a neat little inn just right for a young woman to stay at. This friendly landlady is the cousin of the captain, and it seems that she not only reduces the charge of the inn but also serves a special dish. A specialty. Yes, it is one of the purposes of coming to this place. Letty, it's still early, so let's look at the town. Yes, my lady, I'm looking forward to it. Maybe it was because of the scary sight on the road. After we come to a place where we can feel safe, my lady skipped a little as she walks. Lately, it has become chilly in the evening, but today it is still warm, so my lady is wearing only a light blouse. So when she bounces, she shakes, and for a moment a man passing by stops moving. It was worth it to me to put all the effort into making my threaded, wireless bra for the young lady. I had only heard of this region's specialties as unusual things, but when I asked, I found these things. First of all, beef from the field and mountain oysters. I wonder what they are like. Letty. Yes, my lady. It's a story I've heard somewhere. Nutritious vegetables like beef from the fields, beans. They say oysters that have a good taste because of the nutrients from the mountainous earth flowing into the sea. I think I've heard that story somewhere. Matilda. Look, Letty, look. There's a cow growing in the field. Yes, my lady. Is it a kind of demon? A cow was growing on the tip of a sagging ear of grass about 2 meters from the field. If I had to put it into words, it would make you question your sanity. Is it cannibalism in a sense that the cow is stretching out her neck to chew on the green grass? More importantly, I'm wondering if the taste is like a slice of meat or a vegetable. If so, does mountain oyster mean what the word says? If an oyster was stuck directly to a tree trunk, I would like to question whether it is really good as a shellfish. While I was enjoying my sightseeing, there was a visitor at the inn, addressed to my lady and me. "It's a pleasure to meet you, ladies. We are here as an errand boy for our lord." That person was an elderly butler with a wonderful smile. "Your lord." When the scowling young lady nodded her head cutely, the butler nodded with kind eyes as if he was looking at his granddaughter. "Miss, are you by any chance a caught-up person?" Chapter 33, Ruin. After fighting off a bandit-like group of people, my lady and I, a weak maid, received an invitation from an old butler who claimed to be the Lord's messenger. "What can I do for you, my lady?" "Well, since you're here, I'll take the invitation." "Thank you. That is why I am heading to the Lord's house now. I don't know if the Lord here is a nobleman or not, but he's impatient." In a way, it's refreshing to know that it's at least a few days before we made plans with other noblemen. Since we are travelers, I'm sure he was in a hurry to get us there. "I see. I hadn't thought of that." In the carriage prepared by the butler-san, my lady whispers that in my ear, and I am moved and shaken by my lady's profound deliberation. The butler, who doesn't seem to have heard such a whispered conversation, but who guessed otherwise, lowers his head. "I apologize for not considering your schedule as well. It's not my intention to waste your time. There are students from the Magician's Academy of the royal capital here, and my lord said he would love to have a meal with you all." The students of the academy. I'm the only person in the universe that noticed the slight twitching of my lady's cheeks. "Yes, that's right. My lady is getting better, but she is still a bit of a bad communicator. Anyway, to meet a student of the school in such a mountain town, I hope it's not someone who has a history with my lady." It's a 30-minute drive from the inn by carriage. If it was No's carriage that I had left at the inn, it would be less than 10 minutes away. The lord's mansion that I arrived at was surprisingly small and cozy. He is the lord of this town and the surrounding villages. To put it bluntly, he is the town chief deluxe, I guess. "Ladies, this way please." "Yes, sir." My lady is dressed in a semi-formal dress for the dinner. As a maid, I am prepared to that extent no matter where she goes out. It's Miss Kamishiro. Miss Kamishiro and Miss Sharon. "Miss Ginkgo." "It's Ginkgo." "I'm Fua." "Remember?" "Oh yes, Miss Ginkgo and Miss Fua." "Of course, I remember. I was in the same group with Miss Ginkgo once at the academy, and Miss Fua was the one who was often with her. As I recall, I don't remember them doing anything to me on Earth. I don't remember them helping me out, but I don't think I'm inferring anything from them at the moment." "Well, that was you guys?" The young lady seemed relieved that they weren't bad aristocratic students. Sharon-san. "Sama? Why are you here?" "You don't need Sama. Although I'm sure that to some extent it can't be helped at the academy." "So can you call us by our normal name, too?" "Yeah, I get it. Ginkgo, Fua." "That's it." The little embarrassed my lady is adorable. Thank you for making a friend. As I was unconsciously taken aback by such a miraculous scene, Miss Ginkgo turned to me as if she had remembered something. "Miss Kamishiro. As I recall, your first name was a Japanese name, wasn't it?" The young lady and everyone in the room look at me at that abrupt statement. Come to think of it, I've heard of that. I don't remember you calling yourself Ruti or some other bizarre name even on Earth. Isn't Letty? "Yes, miss. I'm Fruity." Taking the hand of my lady with a slightly anxious face, I kneel on the spot while saying that with an extreme smile. "In that dark world, it's the name I was given by my employer, Lord. If I try to say any other name than this, I will receive a full course of chastisement from the head maid." For some reason, though, my brain can't accept any other name from the time she gave it to me. "Well, I understand." "Letty." "Yes, my lady." The two examples didn't seem very convinced, but the young lady nodded deeply and allowed me to stand up. "Letty, let me know if you think it's okay for me to call you that." "Yes, miss. You really don't remember?" The unimportant things were soon forgotten. The atmosphere was somewhat strange, but the maids of the mansion came to call for us, and we finally dined together. "Hello, these are beautiful ladies. I am Igor, the lord of the land. Please allow me to get to know you." The lord was a relatively handsome man with red hair. He seemed to be still young for a lord. When he greeted us, His gaze rested on my lady's chest for a second. "Could you please listen to this while we eat? There is a strange law about this land." Over dinner, the Lord recounted the law of this land as a topic of conversation. In this continent, until about 1,000 years ago, there were many small countries that had been skirmishing with each other for hundreds of years. There were various reasons for the conflict, such as ideological differences and the desire for a richer land, but the biggest reason was the issue of religion. Nowadays, the old gods were the guardians of this world for a long time. But when the old gods suddenly disappeared, people from all over the world worshipped their own gods and began to fight over them. In the end, the founder of the church, the state religion of Al Grey, overthrew the oracle of the goddess and spread her teachings in this land. There was a temple of that old god left in this land. It's a little bit of a bad geographical location, but I hope that many people will come here as to see it as a tourist attraction. Won't the old gods be offended? Igor-sama scowled for a moment at Miss Fua's asking, then laughed hilariously. Ha ha ha, what? A god that has disappeared. We have a great goddess to protect us. It's a logic that the people with 8 million gods and nature as a religion can't understand. Actually, I have a favor to ask of you guys. It's just a ruin there, but there might be a magical trick. So I would like you, the magicians of the Academy of Magic, to examine the ruins of the temple. My lady and the others too looked at each other involuntarily at Igor-sama's request. We might not be of much use. Yeah, aren't they dangerous? It's all right. I'm a soldier and once I got rid of a dangerous animal. Besides, I've been told that you're great magic students. I'll pay you if you'd be so kind as to check it out while you're sightseeing. Well, glancing at my lady, she looks at me. It may seem a bit forced, but I will obey all of your decisions. The only thing I can do is to protect you, no matter what. When I nodded lightly, my lady was a little troubled and then nodded to her lord. I understand. Surprisingly, the roads aren't too rough. Well, it's a beautiful day and it's like a picnic. I think Letty made some food, so let's have that for lunch. The next day, the 4 of us, including my lady and myself, went out to investigate the ruins. Today we are going out in Na's carriage, but it is a small carriage, so it is a little cramped for 4 of us. Well, I'm a coachman, so it doesn't matter. Letty, are you not tired of driving the carriage? Yes, my lady. That's no problem. By the way, the windows of the carriage are fully open, so you can have a normal conversation. So that place was the temple. Oh, Ginkgo, you know this? Actually, this world is so different from ours, that I was doing a lot of research in the library and I heard that there were ruins from the past here. It's my day off and I just wanted to see. Oh, yeah. Of course. When my lady looks cheerfully convinced, Miss Fua takes out a piece of paper from her bag that looks like the material she studied and shows it to my lady. After listening to the Lord's story, I understand a bit. Until their goddess appeared 1,000 years ago, there were no skills in this world. So, the goddess or something like that gave him the skill that enabled the founding king to get rid of the other tribes. It's not as rough as I thought it would be. Yeah, we're still only able to use magic at an elementary level, so I guess we'll have to leave it up to Sharon-san. Well, you just have to trust me. We arrived at the ruins of the temple and found that it was still in shape. I think the reason why it's not rough is that it has a kind of clean feel to it, but for some reason, I don't feel comfortable. Well then, would you mind if I left it to you? I look around for a reasonable place that looks like a good place to get lunch. Yeah, have a good day, Letty. And so I left the ladies to look around the ruins. Well, let's go hunting for humans, shall we? Hey, buddy, those girls are here. Oh, don't get muddy. If those girls use magic, we'll be caught like those 3 idiots. I'm sorry. Oh, they weren't hit by magic. Oh, my, shut up. Don't make any excuses. If it weren't for us you could have been executed. In exchange, we need to get the girls, and hand the silver-haired girl over to our lord. But what's wrong with the other 3? The other girls sell for more money, but it's all right. You two can do whatever you want with them. I'm a nice guy. Oh, my god, that's great. Ha ha ha. Nice shot. For the time being, we have eradicated those who were insinuating that they were stupid. The 3 bandits we handed over were also there normally. This time, I think the seeds have disappeared. After approaching these ruins, I felt eyes on me from inside the forest, but it was a hit. But still, The fact that the Lord was in league with the bandits is quite an interesting situation. Don't you think so too? I threw the spike club with a snap of my wrist and a figure leapt out of the shadow of the snapping tree. Well, you've noticed it well. This is a strange place to meet you, Mr. Butler. That person was that kind old butler who was the Lord's messenger. He still had a good-natured smile on his face as if he had a mask affixed to it. But he was taking a guarded stance and looking for an opening in me. The old men are in good spirits these days, just like your earlier move. I thought you were only a maid as a guard, but you're stronger than I thought. You responded very well for your age. Ha ha ha. When I was young, I was in an organization that did some assassinations and such. It's a shame that I can't move like I did when I was younger. Well, it's better than these useless people. There's no excuse for our failure. We have ruined a great partnership. No, it's fine. It's been helpful, but you've been getting cocky lately, with few top payments. So if you are going to give me some, that's fine. That's a relief. By the way, there's still a problem. Oh, yeah? What is it? We have a witness, and we can't feel safe until we get rid of her. The old butler's eyes narrowed slightly and a killing intent flooded out as it leaked out in a jiffy, bathed in that killing intent. The old butler's complexion, which had never changed at all, turned blue as he saw the smile that appeared on my face. The old steward makes a retreat without hesitation. It's quite a nice response. But is that right? You'll have to. Nay, what? The carriage. While pulling the carriage at high speed, Nakun the horse blocks the old butler's retreat. At the same time, the cloth usually wrapped around Nakun's entire body rolled up, revealing his entire body. 8. Legs? How can there be a slipknot in this place? I clap my hands with a pang at the stunned old butler. Come on, Nakun. It's time to eat. It's the only place I can feel the magic. Is this a door? It's like the boss's room. How can I help you? Yikes! I called out to my lady who was examining the door like stone wall with a serious face. Everyone jumped up and down screaming, Letty. Out of the blue. I didn't feel anything. I'm sorry about that, and I can't find a better place to eat around here. I think it would be better to take it in the entrance area or here. Oh, really? It's the only place I've felt the magic here, too. Did Letty notice anything unusual about it? Yeah, we didn't find anything. It wasn't exactly a big deal. We'll get back to the Lord's punishment later. It's a good time then, so let's have dinner. Magic floods through the door as I'm about to take the food out of the basket and I instantly step forward to protect my lady. Letty, my lady, I need you to return to the entrance at once. This is... Wait, are you from the other world? Chapter 34, Old God. Greater than. Wait, are you from the other world? Oh, speaking of which, my lady, my former employer gave me a gift of dried squid overnight. Would you like me to marinate it? Does Letty know what's going on? Where did you work before? How did they send it to you? Well, this is not the time for that in the first place. When I said what I suddenly remembered, my lady, Miss Ginkgo, and Miss Fua gave me a tsukumi all at once. The head maid, who was the master and boss of the maids, sent it to me this morning. But I don't understand how she sent it either. Really, that monster. The head maid doesn't have any common sense, does she? It's a slight horror. Oh, excuse me. It's the Marquise de Michel's daughter, Sharon, and her servants, who have come here from the school in King's Landing to see the sights. Letty, there's something about the words that doesn't feel right. It's nothing personal, my lady. If you are from the other world, I would like to have a word with you. Their voice, that came from the stone door, was a rather flippant person. I somehow felt a vaguely accusatory look from everyone other than me. So this unknown maid would like to talk to you. What is your name, sir? At my question, magic power leaks out from the stone door again, and it becomes a voice. The name is lost. I am the one who once made this land. I have lost my strength and a piece of my heart. The old god. Miss Fua muttered that in a small voice, and my lady and Miss Gink also took a breath. I see, that's why the god of this temple had disappeared more than 1,000 years ago. No wonder I felt like he was a god but was a little bit lacking in dignity. Why is that god here? When humans once called me god, a demon robbed me of my power. It seems that God is not all-powerful. Well, I don't believe in an all-powerful God, but this power is just too low. So, Why did you contact us? Those who dwell on this continent cannot hear my voice for one reason or another. Only those who possess a factor other than this world can hear my voice. Well, I can hear you, too. My lady sounds a little surprised at the voice of God. I'm sure you've used your summoning spell to incorporate some of the other world's factors into your life. With that much magic, you'll be able to find out what's going on in the world. The same kind of person has been here before. A lot of magic. For some reason, my lady glances at me. Not at all. I'm innocent. I would like to say, but I was cooking with demonic ingredients to extend my lady's lifespan and prevent aging. But this is where the effect came to an end. We were having a conversation with no main points like that, when Miss Hua, perhaps impatient, came forward with a nervous look on her face. Is it because the people of this world can't hear you that they are disturbed by your voice? Could it be that the person who took your power away from you? Then Miss Fu asked him out and found out a lot of things. First of all, he was ... I don't know if he was a man or not. But even though he was said to be a god, he was not a god, but an old dragon that lived since the age of mythology. After spending tens of thousands of years, his soul reached the realm of a spirit. He obtained a power greater than that of a great spirit and was able to interfere not only with natural phenomena but also with souls and other dimensions. Well, to a weak human being, he looks like a god. He didn't even need to take food, so he would help humans who tried to worship him on a whim. After a while, the humans built a temple for him and many priests and priestesses took care of him to keep him in a good mood. One day, it came to an abrupt end. Due to the fact that he was a dragon, he had to shed his skin once every 1,000 years. Instead of just throwing away his old skin, it seems to be almost a reincarnation, and for a moment, his new body and soul are separated from each other. Aiming for that momentary gap, one of the maidens took away their core of his body, his power as a god itself. That person was saying crazy things daily. My true world is another. It's just that I've been reborn in a different world of barbarism. She said that someday she would create a harem in this world. The ladies look at each other. This sounds like something I've heard before. Could it be a reincarnated person who has transcended a dimension? The priestess deceived the god and robbed him of his power. So what is the priestess doing now? I would address you if you could. I want you to break this seal. I don't know if it is for revenge or to regain your power. But I don't think that a priestess who has gained the power of a god can be managed by a soul who has lost the power. I don't think it can do anything about a priestess who has gained the power of a god. But I feel like it is talking to me, not to anyone else. Well, I'll just help you with that now. Letty. What? When I take out, or Killer X, the young lady looks at me quizzically. Then let's go. Nice shot, Gagan. Kaya. A roar that shook the ruins and the screams of the ladies. The blow, which was delivered with a wide swing, cracked the seal and its stone door, which had been in service for over 1,000 years. It's sturdier than I thought. Hey, what are you doing? You are. I smile at the old god's door, which has something to say to me. The seal has been damaged. If you want to do something, you can't do anything unless you're strong enough to come out of there on your own. Well, yes, I do. Thank you. The otherworldly. I didn't catch the last word, but I wonder if that's my identity. But now we have a guideline for the future. Perhaps the priestess is their administrator of this world. It seems that this world's skill and the cause of the immortalization of some humans is also related to it. If most of those immortalized humans have my lady as their enemy, I may need to antagonize their goddess of this world. Chapter 35, Idle Talk. The invasion of the chief maid. Every day is as peaceful as ever. It's a peaceful time to take a break after a hectic morning's work. Then one day, in the church of the royal capital of King El Grey, a huge stone holy sign that was displayed to ensure that peace in this world would last forever suddenly cracked. Ominous. Holy Knight Elias muttered with a reluctant face as he and the young children from the church orphanage saw it together. Anasan. It'll be fine. Picking up the young child clinging to his legs, Elias asked a nearby priest to repair the holy seal and made up his mind not to go outside for the day. Boom, rumbling. What is that? A man running a fruit orchard on the outskirts rushes out of his barn. A sudden thunder. It will soon be time to harvest the fruit called nasi, which has a lot of moisture, and if a squall comes and the fruits fall off, there will be heavy damage. But the sky was clear and almost cloudless, and there were no thunderclouds to be seen in the distance. What was that? What in the world? Hey, there. The man who was approached from behind in the fruit orchard, which was rarely visited by anyone but himself, turned around to roll over with a maiden-like scream. "Ah, you! I'm sorry. I'd like to ask you a few questions." Seeing the figure of the voice reddened the bear-like face of the man who had been single until this age. She looks like about 20 years old, dressed in a long jet black dress without a single piece of dust and wearing a pure white apron dress like fine silk. Fine white skin that has never been touched by the sun and beautiful blonde hair curled into a luxurious vertical roll. The figure looked like an aristocrat's or even a royal maid. The most surprising thing about her is her beauty. The cold beauty, with perfect symmetry and no human distortions, looked like a doll created by God. "Wah, what?" When the man asked the woman, who didn't show any expression, with a strange sense of intimidation, the woman nodded leisurely. "Have you seen a dark-haired maid in her mid-teens around here?" "There are no maids in a place like this. A nobleman's mansion in the city of the royal capital would be a good place to find one." When the woman asked the direction of the royal capital, she thanked the man politely and walked in that direction. The man, who had been staring at the distant back of the maid, shook his head as if he was misty-eyed by the woman's beauty and muttered with a small sigh, "But she was so beautiful." If that wasn't a precipice! Snap, rumble, rumble. That year no fruit was shipped from a fruit orchard on the outskirts of Wangdu. Shiver. "What's wrong?" "Letty." "I'm sorry, my lady. There's a chill in the air." I served tea and snacks to my lady in the girls' dormitory room at the Academy of Magic, and I suddenly felt a chill and shuddered. "Well, you shouldn't do that, Letty. You're not catching a cold, are you?" "I'm sorry about your concern. Now, would you like some more chocolate donuts?" "Thank you." Gazing smilingly at my lady as she chews on her third donut, I gently look out of the window. Ominous. "Hello, owner. Do you know of any dark-haired, somewhat unusual maids around here in their mid-teens?" "Welcome." The owner of a shop near the third dungeon, commonly known as the Salt Dungeon, is greeted by a strangely beautiful blonde maid who walks into his shop and gives him a stern look, feeling a sense of déjà vu. "Why do I only get strange women in my shop?" The demon outbreak that occurred last month caused a lot of damage, but the store is safe and it's back on track now. It's a good thing that the strange maid defeated the demon that attacked the store and bought some of the ruined goods. But the owner was a little bitter about being negotiated down so cheaply that he thought he could be a little mean to the woman in front of him, if she was an acquaintance of the maid. "Well, there's nothing I don't know, but you see, you know when you ask a stranger for something, right?" "Lady Maid." "I see. You have a good point." "Huh?" The owner of the store, who had a somewhat lowly smile on his face, readily agreed and gently touched her cheek. She let out a voice that made his heart pound, but he couldn't help but be disturbed. "Since the shopkeeper is a little lonely with his scalp, I would like to give you the secret method of my lord." "Yeah, hey." On that day, you could hear a scream that seemed to echo through the town, and the shop never reopened that day. Bam. I was running out of sugar, so I was on my way to the merchant's shop to buy some. When the laces of my leather boots were all cut off at once, I put my fingertips to my lips and let out a small whistle, and snotty kids come up to me from alleyways all over the place. "Anit-chan, hello." "Yes, it's a beautiful day. Did you find anything unusual?" "He is not open today." A very beautiful woman came in, and then all of a sudden he closed up the shop. The owner's hair had an afro. "Very well. Here's your reward." "Hey, Anit-chan, thanks." Waving back at the children who waved at me with innocent smiles as they got their iced sugar, I decided to give up on today's shopping and go back to my lady. Ominous. "This time I want that one. Just her." Marquis Michel's, Sharon's brother Joan's maid of honor, who lost her position when her sister and brother made up. Mia, who was supposed to be starting over as a new maid with a pardon despite being the perpetrator of the attack on Sharon, was about to attack them, again, gathering the roughnecks with her former connections. She doesn't care about Sharon anymore. She just thought that all of the damage that was currently falling on her was because of that maid and she wanted to get revenge. Hey, I can help. But you have to pay me for the labor." "It's okay, Dario. I'm sure she got a lot of bags to give you." Mia is in her early 20s, but she has been quite naughty as a teenager. A few goons from that time, including Dario, a former butler from the Marquis family, were her friends from that time. Give me that black-haired maid, too. Okay, now give that Fluority guy a good, hard slap on the wrist. Did you just say Fluority? Yeah. When Mia turned around, she saw that all the men had their limbs unjointed and were displayed on the wall of the back alley in a strange object-like state. What? Huh. I'm sorry. It was a little unsightly, so I made it pretty and put it on the wall. Mia couldn't understand what was going on at the outrageous dialogue of a beautiful, slender blonde maid she had never seen before. She looked at the woman and Dario and the others over and over without finishing. And about your clothes, I believe you are some maid. It seems to me that you are not well educated as a maid, so I will be happy to give you some special instructions. What? Then that day, a young woman's screams came from the back alley and one of the maids was gone. Nice to meet you. I am Flority's boss. I was the head maid at our former employer. Well, that's a long way from home, isn't it? Letty, the head maid was worried about you. It's been a long time. What a surprise, the head maid has arrived. And my lady who summoned me from another world is not uncomfortable with the head maid from my former workplace. The head maid is conversing calmly with my lady, but she radiates a perfectly controlled intimidation that only radiates on me. That monster. Flority. I'm sorry. Please don't read my mind normally. As I stiffened, the head maid slowly approached me and suddenly patted my head and bowed to my lady. I am glad that Flority is able to serve you well, Lady Sharon. Please take care of my unworthy apprentice. Yes, Letty is good to me. For saying such a thing and coming so suddenly, the head maid left easily. Don't tell me that she really just came to see my face. She was a good person, wasn't she? By the way, Letty, I don't know what to do. The room was piled high with a foot-deep pile of nassy fruit, salt, sugar, flour, and other items, as well as dried wakame and taco slime. All of them were souvenirs of the head maid. As usual, the head maid is a horrible person. Chapter 36, Saints. Several months have passed since the restoration of the Magic Academy. The graduation ceremony was at the beginning of spring. After it was the graduation party held in the middle of spring. The new semester began at the end of summer. And now it has become winter and the new year has arrived. To celebrate the new year, the people gather around the royal castle to see the royals and the newly introduced saints. In one of the antechamber from the castle, Minami sipped from a teacup with a relaxed gesture. She has lightly arranged glossy black hair and long eyelashes. Her white skin and petite body made her look pretty as a doll. But her gestures and her melancholy, pale eyes made her look more mature than her age. Minami grew up in her grandmother's house, the head of a flower arrangement association. Her mother, who was strictly raised by her grandmother, rebelled against her as much as she could. The wise Minami understands that her grandmother's strict discipline is a reflection of her inferiority complex as the head of a small family. To relieve her stress, Minami's first contact with the Otome game was at the home of her friends, Akiru and Chisato, and she became addicted to it. Minami's arrival in this world was an event she desired. She would be lying if she said she wasn't interested in the targets of this world. But she was more than happy to get free from her grandmother and possibly be free to fall in love in this world. The two friends who knew the game were in a hurry to capture the targets, or perhaps they were in a hurry to destroy themselves in the blink of an eye. Now their position in the academy was frail. Minami had no intention of fighting with them. It seemed that they were proceeding with their game strategy without telling her, but Minami wondered how both of them, who had been working so hard on the game, destroyed themselves. This world is very similar to the Otome game, but it is a different real world than the game. And the target's a living person. If you don't take this into account, there's no way you can capture the game. But that could not be the only reason why two people with a good point of view would fail easily. Someone is interfering with the game. Ginkgo and Fukiya, who are relatively close friends, don't play games. Those three bully also did nothing but chase trends and idols and had never once heard of the Tropic of Gaming. Then who? If it was a process of elimination, it would be that bullied Kamishiro girl. She wasn't even interested in what Kamishiro was thinking, but in that situation, it's not surprising that she hates all the girls in her class. And one more. Minami-sama, the Saintess of Light is here. Oh, dear. Please let her in. After giving permission for the chambermaid to let her in, the door quietly opens and a pretty girl with fluffy, golden hair and a gentle smile enters. I'm sorry, Minami. I just wanted to talk to you for a moment. Yes, that's quite all right, Miss Clarice. The Lady of Light who ended the demon outbreak. It was the main heroine of this at-home game, Viscountess Clarice de Yellow. Please have a seat. Thank you. Minami smiled serenely at the arrival of the heroine, who was a big deal, and recommended a seat. The maidservant brewed green tea for the two of them. After a casual chat over the rare green tea, Clarice asked with the same smile, "What is your target?" "Well, you do say some strange things, don't you?" A strange tension develops between them, and they both stare at each other in silence for a moment, both smiling the same way. It was unlikely that Clarice, a resident of this world, knew anything about the game. But maybe she knows something about it. It wouldn't be you who doesn't know what it means, would it? Isn't it not fair to ask me that? When Minami replied that, Clarice, who asked, gave a small smile. That's right. I would like to be by His Highness's side and light up this country with light. That's lovely. I'm doing the best so I can take care of the two on our side. With that much conversation, the icy tension between them vanished. This is an agreement. They won't cooperate, but they won't get in each other's way either. Gashan. A maid, who seemed to have developed anemia from the tension, wobbled and knocked over a vase with fresh flowers in it. I'm sorry. Ouch. Don't panic, dear. I'm not going to scold you. When the maid cut her finger in a hurry to pick up the broken vase, Clarice cast a divine spell of healing on it and instantly healed it. Oh, thank you very much. A saint of light, beloved by the goddess. While admiring her divinity, the maidservant's expression is clouded by the vase she has broken and the flowers she has scattered. There. Everything that has a form will eventually break. But Minami gathered up the scattered flowers and arranged them in a flower arrangement, while a green light radiated from her hands, bringing the flowers back to their original state. Green hands, a rare skill to grow and restore plants. When the maidservant muttered in amazement at the beauty of the arranged flowers and the sight of them, Minami smiled softly. At that moment, they heard a male voice from a butler outside the room. Thank you for waiting. Saints of light, saints of green, your majesties are waiting for you. It's not too cold these days. How are you all doing? Hello, Flority here, a maid who knows the difference of every millimeter of daily growth. How dare you, lowly one, to enter my realm of the goddess household. Today, I went to the Devil's Forest early in the morning to look for foodstuffs, but I was suddenly confronted with a fate. As I recall, it's a demon of a very large bird called a phoenix. I remember it was called a holy beast in some regions, but still, a beast from the goddess. I was just passing by, but it seems to be very badly trained. Considering the misfortune that has befallen my lady, Miss Ginkgo's and Miss Fua thoughts of the at-home game that a former classmate said in her sleep is becoming more and more plausible. It seems that the thing that supports the root of it is the order of this world, the goddess. According to what I heard from the head maid before, it seems that the administrator of the world is usually a great spirit or something like that. But on the rare occasion that an existence with power that surpasses the Great Spirit appears, they take away the role from the Great Spirit and start being core-legged. It's a troublesome existence. Do you ignore me, lowly one? I hope you will atone for that sin with your life. I didn't know you were still here. At any rate, I wasn't interested in you, a firebird, because it doesn't have many parts to eat. But if you call yourself a goddess family member, it can't be helped. Geez. The firebird falls as the walnut shoots him in the head. I'm a little late with the warning. Everyone please be careful when you shoot your nuts. Ouch. Oh? I'm glad to see you're still alive. I heard there are stories about resurrecting from the ashes or something like that. But if he was shot in the head and still breath, it can't be called an exaggeration. I entrust the egg in my nest to you. I'm sorry, sir. I don't think it's such a great idea to entrust the egg to your killer. But I'm not so out of line that I'd ignore a dying wish. I'm counting on you. The firebird was reduced to ashes after saying that much, so I picked up an ostrich-sized egg from a large tree nearby and walked home with it. Good morning, my lady. Good morning. My lady is very pretty as she rubs her eyes and tries to get up. My lady, breakfast is ready. What kind of food? Today we are serving a fresh omelette. Speaking of which, I heard that when a firebird dies, its spirit takes over its own eggs. Chapter 37, Young Dragon. Letty, do you think I'm beautiful? Yes, you're very beautiful, my lady. Today is a day off and the my lady is getting ready to go out. Of course, My lady is very pretty and she is getting more beautiful every day. I mix every day some demonic ingredients into her diet so that it doesn't put a burden on her. Because of that, her magical power and cell regeneration ability are enhanced. The demon material doesn't only prevent aging. The nutritional value of the firebird egg that a kind person kindly gave me the other day has the effect to regenerate any parts that have been distorted by the daily life. So even the parts that have been growing abundantly are in the best form. I won't say which part. Letty, you're thinking of something else, aren't you? My lady's bosom is at dear, isn't it? I don't know what you mean. Anyway, my lady is going out today because she sent a letter to thank Mr. Andy for saving her from a dangerous situation at the academy. And she was invited not to the Knights Barracks but to the Marquis de Mercia's family home, where Mr. Andy is staying today. Knock knock. A knight is here to see you, Miss Sharon. Yes. My lady and I went downstairs to the first floor to find Mr. Andy, who looked uncomfortable as he was being stared at by a number of female students. I gave a small portion of baked goods to the female student who had come to deliver the message. Hi, Sharon. Well, it looks good on you. Oh, thank you. My lady responds to Mr. Andy's slightly embarrassed lines with a shy smile. My lady's outfit today is a light green colored dress, as it is the beginning of spring. The slender dress looks great on my lady, but, to tell the truth, the firebird's egg is very nutritious and high in calories at the same time. Maybe that's why the young lady's weight is a bit higher than the average, so I had to stay up late last night to massage the young lady's entire body. Letty. Again. No. My lady, I always think only of you. I do believe that the massage was the easiest method to adjust your body to the measurements of the dress. Having said that to the point that my lady got teary-eyed, as a maid, I have the duty to maintain my lady's figure in perfect condition. As I dodged the slippers that my lady was trying to slap me with a gorgeous sidestep while I pinched up the hem of my skirt. A junior schoolgirl looked at me with longing eyes and turned away, while Mr. Andy couldn't even look directly at us. It's probably a 30-minute carriage ride from the academy to the Marquis of Mercia's villa. If it was a carriage towed by Nakun, it would take a few minutes. But Mr. Andy came to pick us up in a 4-horse carriage that belonged to the Mercia family and could hold 6 people with room to spare. Welcome, Miss Sharon. Welcome home, little boy. I'll be 24. Will you stop calling me a little boy? A 50-something well-dressed maidservant greets us, perhaps serving here for a long time, and looked at Mr. Andy with gentle eyes. It's been a long time, Miss Sharon. Do you remember me? Yes. Of course. I remember seeing you and Master Carl playing together as if it were yesterday. The maidservant, Lady Murdy, seemed to know my lady 10 years ago. That's when my lady and I first met. Lady Murdy, I have brought you this. You're Miss Sharon's handmaiden. I don't need a lady. Well, it smells very nice. I brought this Baumkuchen as a souvenir. It's not like the scrap of Baumkuchen that I gave to the underclassmen, but a cut from the middle part, a 10-centimeter thick slice. We baked it in the courtyard of the girls' dormitory while wrapping it around a giant iron skewer, so it was difficult for the dieting girls not to look at us with resentment. At that moment, a blue-green object flew out of the open doorway with a bizarre scream. I almost shot it down by throwing the spike cudgel at it, but as it headed towards Mr. Andy, I didn't move, and after catching the flying object with the size of a medium-sized dog, Andy laughed and patted the object's head. Dragon? The little dragon looked up at the sound of my lady's voice, and Mr. Andy held it back up so she could get a better look at it. Is this the first time you've met Sharon? This is my partner, another worldly dragon. I see. Mr. Andy is also a nobleman from the Academy of Magic. So it's not surprising that there is an intelligent race that was summoned from another world. Partner. I've heard that humanoid forms are rare, but a dragon. Wow, that's cute. As my lady who likes pretty things screams, the little dragon happily jumps on my lady with its little wings and buried its face in her chest. It's a very happy scene. But I feel a strange heartburn. Haha, let's not stay in this place forever. Let's go inside. Okay. As we entered the pavilion, Lady Murdy, I was told no honorific titles were necessary, but I salute my predecessors. Lady Murdy came down to prepare the tea and I was allowed to join her to cut the Baumkuchen. As a maid, I have to show her that the sweets I brought have no poison in it. Since it was a gift for Mr. Andy, I decided on a very ordinary sweetness, but I knew that would not be enough for my calorie-loving young lady, so I also prepared a cream with honey. When I cut it up and put it on a plate, the young maids of the Marquis family, well, they are older than me, served Mr. Andy's portion while looking at it. I've properly brought a small portion for them as well. I should leave the rest to them. To mess with them any further would be to invade their territory. When I was about to go back to the reception room first, I saw that moldy little dragon floating in the empty corridor. Wait, you're from another world. My name is Jade. I have something to tell you. The dragon said that in a very deep male voice and gazed at me. I see. So this is what the strange feeling is all about. It's true that the intelligent creatures they summon from other worlds can't be just pets, can they? Regardless, I'd like to take care of a few things first. What? Nice shot. I gracefully approached Jade, who spoke in a deep voice, and in an instant, I blasted Jade from directly below with the spiked club. You have something to tell me, but I will not tolerate sexual harassment of my lady. Chapter 38, Secret Agreements. Andy, thank you so much for saving my life in such a dangerous situation. No, it's fine as long as Sharon is okay. In fact, I don't know if I would have made it in time if Miss Flaherty hadn't picked me up on the way. If you want to thank me, you should thank her. Yes, Letty's a good friend of mine. Andy gazes dazzled at Sharon, who has a girlish smile on her face. The girl who was a childhood friend, but could not be saved from the bonds of nobility. There was no one who she could call a friend. She was always being blamed by those around her. She even forgot how to smile and just tried to protect her pride in being an aristocrat. But now it seemed like a miracle that she had a bright smile on her face. Andy turned his eyes away from Sharon with a sigh. He realized too late his own desire. But their position now was just that of the second prince's potential fiancé and the second prince's knight. And because Joel-sama told me to go. You can thank Joel-sama as well. Yes. Sharon's smile clouds slightly as she remembers her position, too. Joel approves of the two of them, but due to his position, he couldn't say it out loud. Both of them, as the eldest children of the Marquis families, were also in a position where they had to abide by the rules of the aristocracy, even if it meant to sacrifice themselves. Did His Highness say anything to you after that? Just once I received a letter. The first prince who had eradicated the demons, Crown Prince Yuri, was interested in Sharon and her maid, Flaherty. If he was so inclined, even if she was a potential fiancée of his brother, it could be easily overruled by one word from him. However, Yuri only sent a letter to say, show up at the castle one of these days. I'm not going to be able to tell you what to do, but you can't procrastinate forever, and even if the prospective fiancé was not Joel but Andy, as a nobleman it would be difficult to refuse. They are in love with each other, but they have lost each other. The two had already changed from being childhood friends and a man and a woman to the face of a nobleman. So, how about we mix some stimulants into the tea and see how it goes? What do you mean? As expected of the Mercier family, the height of the ceiling is much higher than the average, so no one seems to notice. Hello, Flaherty here, the maid of record, who, together with her little dragon Jade, is huddled against the ceiling of the parlor, gently watching over the two. I thought there were strange signs. But you wasn't a human after all. It is a maid's etiquette to look in the ceiling for the sake of my lady. There's no maid like that. This is a strange thing to say. I'm a lovely spider, you know. Anyway, the disputes between Jade and me has been settled. I said that if he didn't admit to the sexual harassment of my lady, I would demand compensation in court. And Jade agreed to pay a reconciliation to settle the matter. It's a small, dirty stone. It's dragon's gallstones. For one thing, it's worth several times as much as those gems around here. I'm not impressed because it came out of my mouth. By the way, let me ask you, why are you acting like a pet? I had heard that dragons are quite proud, but it was the other world he was indifferent. When you pretend to be like that, the pure young girls come to you. The reconciliation has been doubled. I've heard that intelligent dragon species have offspring with other species and give birth to subspecies. But they are really unprincipled creatures. As we talked while seriously watching my lady's deflections, I found out many things. Jade is a dragon from another world, but it seems that he can hear the voice of the dragon god that was sealed in the ruins. Although the voice is audible, It is a one-way oracle and cannot be spoken with. But when he followed the voice and investigated, he found out that the goddess worshipped in this country is the one who took away the power from the old god. It is said that the priestess who became the goddess was unable to use the complete power she took away. She was only able to influence this country at first. After every few hundred years, the number of countries and regions she influenced increased. When I say every few hundred years, come to think of it, it matches the number of games that I heard about from Miss Akiru. Every few hundred years, the goddess summons someone who has been playing the game on Earth to play her game across time and space, making her the heroine to enjoy the game. This is a game world created by the goddess. Is your brain okay? It's the result of research. I know it's a stupid thing to say, but it's really hard to believe that someone who calls herself a goddess would be such an idiot. But, according to Jade, he's trying to contact the dragon species outside the goddess's warding to attack, but after they become a subspecies, their intelligence drops to a stuttering degree, so they can't break through the goddess's warding. How did the head maid come in? All I ask of you is to destroy the wards. It's a pity. But you seem to be more powerful than the current dragon. All right. So help me in case of emergency. Thus ended the secret talks and secret agreements with Jade. And so, it seems that my lady has finished talking to Mr. Andy as well. Where did she go? Letty? Yes, my lady. I jumped out at the call and landed diagonally behind my lady and called out to her, and my lady and Mr. Andy slumped down with a twitching face. Letty, were you up on the ceiling again? As my lady's maid, I was ready to deal with everything at any time. What are you talking about? I was hit with a slipper by my lady who turned bright red. As expected of my lady, she is very modest. Are you free again, my lady? Yes, it seems so. I heard that the holy beast that was the guardian in the demon forest has disappeared, and parts of the forest are starting to die. That must be very difficult. It's been a while since the academy classes start yet again, but they need to cancel classes again. Apparently it's the big bird sacred beast that disappeared, but that's annoying. That's fine, but for some reason, I don't remember taking the class much. I wondered if that was a good thing, but here and there, some students seem to have completed the partner contract. Less than half of all students, but I heard that the achievement rate of the junior high school group was higher for boys than for girls. The reason for this is that the hot sellers such as Miss Akiru and Miss Chisato are in the girls group, but the reason why Mr. S and Mr. Hao in the boys group remain unsold is mysterious. But what does the withering away of the demon forest have to do with the academy's holiday? You've never heard of it, Letty? Minami-sama became the Green Saint, right? It is said that the demon's forest serves as a ward to prevent outside demons from entering. She is going to heal the forest, and some of the instructors and students are going to protect Minami-sama. Isn't that the work of the soldiers from Al Grey? Well, I guess you could say that. My lady didn't even seem to question it until I told her. Was there another subtle interference? Let's fire up that stupid goddess one of these days. Knock, knock. Letty, there's someone here to see us. Again. That's unusual. It's not that my lady has a bad temperament and doesn't have many visitors or anything like that. It's just that, as a nobleman, invitations to my lady start with a letter to ask for her schedule. So it's a rare occurrence, except in cases like the last time when they came to pick us up. I went to the door, looked through the peephole, and saw a small schoolgirl with a couple of handmaids who looked familiar. Who are you? This is Minami. I've been talking to you and Miss Sharon. Yes, it was Miss Minami. Wasn't it? Of course, I remembered you. When I opened the door, Ms. Minami stepped forward and smiled a mature smile. I'd like Miss Sharon and you to come with me to the demon forest, but could you please tell Miss Sharon? Chapter 39, Encounter. So, Miss Minami, you really want me to come with you? Yes, healing the demon forest is good for this country. That's why I want Miss Sharon and Fruity to come with us. When my lady asked her that, Ms. Minami smiled and said so, bringing a bit of chiffon cake, full of whipped cream, I had served to her mouth. It's delicious. Fruity. That's good to know. Miss Minami seems to be the same as ever. As far as I can remember, Ms. Minami is an intelligent person, even from my point of view, but she doesn't consider herself to be rejected in any way. What she says is correct. That's why she thinks no one will reject what she is saying, and she proceeds on the basis of that. She pretends that she didn't see me being bullied in class, and she talks to me like nothing happened, and she thinks it's right. So, even now, she wouldn't think for a second that she could make a request to a lady who is a nobleman and have it rejected. My lady glances at me. I nod slowly at that. I understand, Miss Minami. I will join you. Well, after all, Miss Sharon is a wonderful person. I look forward to working with you. When my lady with a somewhat twitchy smile agreed, Ms. Minami thanked her without any particular pleasure in words alone. Then, after a little small talk, Ms. Minami left with the handmaidens she had brought with her. Those maidservants don't have a very good attitude either. Probably the maidservants of the royal palace, but it seemed as if they were looking down on my lady. Thank you for your service, my lady. I apologize that I have make you accept a request that could be dangerous. I bow my head to my lady as she breathes away from the tension, and she chuckles and shakes my hand. I know that Letty always puts me first. It's important to the country. As a noblewoman, I can't say no if the saintly lady asks me to. You are very well behaved, my lady. Next to those two melons. Are you thinking of something strange again? I beg your pardon. You eat a lot of watermelons, aren't you, my lady? What are you talking about? It seems that I was able to deceive my lady well. Anyway, even if I'm the one who perfectly protects my lady, as my lady's personal maid, I have an obligation to make her comfortable even if she's in the devil's forest. That's why I've come to purchase various things. What do you mean? I've made it to the store near that salt dungeon. The owner's shop is a little smaller than the shops on King's Central Street, but the owner's resourcefulness has allowed him to keep a wide variety of useless products. He has a wide range of products that you can shop at a surprisingly low price. I'd like to say that the owner is the same as always, but I'm afraid you've changed a lot in appearance. Oh, you know what changed, maid? At my words, the owner proudly turns his head and puffs out his nostrils. I got it done by a very beautiful maid. Is that right? Unfortunately, that broccoli-like thing is not hair. Speaking of which, have you lost weight? Your skin also looks a little green. Well, I've been craving some kind of green thing, or rather, seaweed lately. Could you be a little flexible, maidservant? Good. It's a pretty nasty parasitic type of thing. But, well, it's not life-threatening, and if its host is in danger, it'll probably take a risk and save him. If there's a drawback, it would be that his whole body would turn green and he would eventually return to the sea. That may be a happy life for him, but I'll continue to shop for a while longer and I'll handle it somewhat on my end. Oh, a woman's skirt is rolled up outside. What the fuck? Before I can finish, the owner of the store leans out from the counter with a lot of momentum. You didn't you? TSK. It's rude to do that if you have a pretty maid like me right in front of you, isn't it? For now, I crushed the intelligent part of his hair. Now that I've picked off the nasty part, it's not like the shopkeeper will be returning to the ocean in a few years. The only problem is that only the top of the shopkeeper's head has been picked off, reducing his defenses to zero, and his haircut looks like he's wearing an afro-shaped donut. I think it's good to have a very eccentric and unique haircut. I bought some sweets, outdoor cooking tools, and other necessary items, and while I was at it, I sold a simple map of the demon forest that I had mapped out for a fair price. About that demon forest, if it was a ward that resulted in preventing demons from entering the forest, would it allow Jade's household members to enter if it was completely destroyed? Now, let's get one more thing done, shall we? Fie. As I lightly whistled near the back street, a group of snot-nosed children began to trickle out of the alley. One-chan, hello. I'm glad to see you guys are doing well. Has anything changed? When I ask this, the children, in turn, whisper in my ear. The number of demons occurring in the western villages is increasing. Apparently the disappearance of the holy beast is a factor, but the cause is not known, even by the order. Next week, I hear that a group of green saints are going to heal the devil's forest. Lately, the underworld has started telling me to run away if I see a young maid with dark hair. There's also a somewhat shrewd topic in there. I see. Are the soldiers working on that? Any news on the Green Saints? The soldiers aren't moving for some reason. I don't know why. The Green Saint was recognized by the church. It is said she was chosen prematurely in order to recover from an earlier blunder, but it feels somewhat unnaturally. I gave them a little more rock sugar as a treat, and the kids ran down the street for their errand, smiling innocently. Innocent children are soothing, after all. I had expected this, but there didn't seem to be much useful information. I wish I could have learned something from the child's rumors, but let's head to his place as planned. A few minutes later, I arrived at what looked like a rundown coffee shop. As expected, I would say, the shop doesn't look like it's in vogue. What kind of coffee shop is it? It's one of those old town neighborhood coffee shops where if you ask for an iced coffee, you'll get a sweet iced coffee with gum syrup already in it, but you'll be charged 400 yen for a cup. I entered the coffee shop. From here I can see the holy sign of the goddess on the steeple of the church. It doesn't seem to go well with me and I don't feel very good when I see it. Besides, since there is a possibility that the goddess is my enemy, I can't just walk up to her and let her know of my existence without a second thought. I went to the back room of the shop, and the man I was looking for was already seated. "Did I keep you waiting?" "No, I've just arrived." He put his cup of coffee on his plate and he, the holy knight of the church, Lord Elias, looked at me and smiled kindly. Chapter 40, Departure. "Take a seat, Miss Furity." "Thank you." Mr. Elias took the trouble to get up from his seat and pull out a chair for me. As a maid, I feel uncomfortable doing that to a nobleman. But I'm not that uncouth either. And this one too, I don't know where he had it, but he crowned me with one red and one white rose. "What would you like to drink?" "Tea, please." This coffee shop is, what can I say, self-service. The reason for this is that there is only a staggering old man working here, and if you wait for him to come and take your order, you'll wait all day. But if you think about it, there are shops in the Earth's shopping district that have been open for many years even though I've never seen any customer go in. I don't really care about that, but what to do with this rose? It's not enough to make jam with it. I had no choice but to finish munching on it when Mr. Elias came back with a cup of tea. "You said you wanted to ask me about the goddess, as I recall." The reason why I was meeting with Mr. Elias outside their church was that I wanted to hear directly from him, who had heard an oracle about their goddess. As expected, if we did something like that within the church, I might attract the goddess's attention, right? Even if I just heard it from the old god, I heard that she has a power that surpasses even a great spirit. Even if the goddess can't master all of that power, there's no guarantee that I can win head-on. I'm glad that Miss Furity is interested in the teachings of the goddess. "Let me tell you what I know, please." "If that is what you think, Mr. Elias, I will not make any particular correction." "It is the duty of a lady not to refuse a man's kindness." The beginning of the church that worships the goddess began about 1,000 years ago during the founding of this country. With such a beginning, the origin of the church and goddess was not so different from what we have heard so far. The earth was devastated because the old gods had disappeared, and the goddess, who was saddened by this, descended from the heavens and gave an oracle to the young man who was to become the founding king and his queen, a saint from another world for which the people and the king were grateful, and established the church. If you think about it, the goddess is the one who caused the chaos on this continent by taking away the power of the old god. Besides, I'm also coming down from the ceiling, so I am not too different. "So you're saying it's okay if I say I am a goddess?" "Well, I am a person of common sense who admits it to myself and others, so I am embarrassed by such a shameless act, and it is impossible for me to do so." The first question that comes to mind: what was the goddess like? The goddess appeared to me in my dreams. The first time I saw her, the goddess has been appearing in Mr. Elias' dreams since shortly after he entered the orphanage. She had blue eyes and luxurious golden hair. She was in her mid to late teens. She looked like a beautiful girl, and then every time he met her, her hair and clothes became more and more gorgeous and beautiful. Perhaps Mr. Elias was a favorite of the goddess, who was becoming more and more beautiful as he grew up. Miss Furity, I'm sorry. I put back the hand that was touching Mr. Elias's cheek and I bow my head deeply. It's strange that I would care about someone other than my lady. I'm sure I must have felt pity for him. That said, I heard that Miss Sharon and Miss Furity are going to heal the demon forest along with Miss Minami. It sounds dangerous. Is it safe? Mr. Elias unexpectedly changed the topic. Well, I was able to hear most of the things about the goddess, so there's no problem for now. I just found out that there's nothing I can do about her, though. Don't worry, I'll take care of my lady's safety. I am concerned about your safety. Come to think of it, there was such a thing. I couldn't think of a greater threat in this world than the head maid, so I hadn't thought of that. Would it be better to eradicate them first? You have to be careful. How is it that Miss Minami, the Green Saint, performs the healing and the church does nothing? It's certainly not right. In a situation like this, the church should be the one to take the lead. Is that right? Could this be one of the events that the goddess prepared? As far as I'm concerned, she's not a good person. Now, it was the day to leave for the demon forest. Good morning, my lady. It's morning. When I urged my lady to wake up, she opened her eyes slightly and then buried her face in the pillow again. It's only before 4 in the morning, so it can't be helped. But since we're leaving from the school grounds at 6 o'clock, we don't have much time to spare. I could massage my lady all night long. But since I actually massaged her all night long, the fun time went by so fast that it became morning. I must wake her up for her sake. I must devote myself to waking her up. No. As my lady's personal maid, the correct path is to let her sleep until the last minute while ensuring that she can make it in time. What? Good morning, my lady. What? Good morning, Letty. My lady's astonished expression is very cute. But I can't blame my lady for her confusion. When she woke up, she found herself in the middle of getting feed her pancakes with lots of honey. Having finished dressing up perfectly, I really tried my best. I had bathed my lady so that she wouldn't wake up, polished her whole body while massaging her, conditioned her hair and skin, changed into her outfit to go out, and feed her breakfast. What? Serving breakfast that was high in calories helped to keep your mouth open. I don't like calories. She scolded me quite seriously. She said I should wake her up properly in the morning. Could it be that it was wrong to massage her in the bathroom? I'm going, Letty. Yes, I'll go with you. In the schoolyard, Ms. Minami and several attendants and Knights of the King's Guard had already finished their preparations. From the academy, Dr. Eric Marso and a group of volunteer students. Oh, even Mr. S and Mr. How are there? Good morning. I understand you will be joining us as well. Good morning. Good morning, Miss Kamishiro. Miss Minami asked me to join you. That's a lot of baggage. Mr. How, who was following my lady who headed towards Miss Minami to greet her, returned an unkind greeting, and Mr. S, who greeted me cheerfully, was slightly taken back when he saw my luggage. Apart from their expansion bag, that can hold 100 kilos of luggage, I am also carrying a super huge backpack on my back. This is also only about 100 kilos. So it's not a big deal. All of this is a large amount of sweetened calories to make my lady comfortable. Letty, for some reason, my lady spotted my thoughts and scolded me again.